music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of jest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor pulls the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Show. Hope you're ready to enjoy your weekend. I know I am. Just have one quick thing I needed to wrap up here. All right. So, how's everybody doing? Wow, we got 19 people already. So, it's gonna be a weekend, isn't it? Quite a lot going on today. We might be headed for another shutdown, probably will be, but at least maybe this one won't be so bad. It just depends on how much they insist on funding ICE and Department of Homeland Security, but it looks like there's a compromise close to being worked out, so that's good news. Then the Epstein files, in case you missed it, which you probably haven't. A whole bunch of them got released today. Our dear friend Kitty is working on that right now. She's going through them, and she says that there is a lot of stuff in there, including some snuff stuff. So when Blanched Potatoes was talking about the thing, and he was talking about like images of deaths, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is in these things? No wonder they tried so hard to block them. Anyway, looks like about 3 million new documents or whatever are being released, and so she's got her Epstein wiki going on. She's trying to update that. She's doing a spaces on that later today on X, and I think she's going to try and pop on a little bit so we can talk a little bit about that. Let me. It sounds pretty. She's got like she's got some things here, but she's got a number of things posted on her Twitter account, but I don't know what they mean. Wow. This is an interesting one. This is a interesting little tidbit right here. All right, let me. Where'd that go? Lost it. Oh wait, you know what it is? I think it's here. It's this one. It's on her Blue Sky account. Against all odds, we have been granted a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. So apparently, Jeff Epstein and his buddies got a meeting with Netanyahu on 2011. Wonder why that is. Wonder what Netanyahu had to do with Epstein. I think that's curious. What do you think? Is he a kitty diddler? All right, so hopefully she'll be able to join us a little later and we can talk about that some more. But in the meantime, I did put together a slideshow that I wanted to go through today. And Bob Lemon was arrested this morning, in case you hadn't heard, under the PACE Act, or the FACE Act. And the FACE Act, we'll go through the whole thing, but basically the FACE Act was written as a, to keep people from blocking abortion clinics. But there's a clause in there about not blocking churches as well. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff about the FACE Act. What does it mean? Why do we have it? Did Lemon break it? Did the protesters violate it? How has it traditionally been enforced? All of that kind of stuff, because I think that there's some really interesting things that whichever side of the aisle you're on might make you kind of stop and think about what the truth is. So at least, consider your own position on things. So we'll start. We'll just go through it. And since we don't seem to have don't have any comments going on yet, so we'll just dive right in there. Let me just check some. Want to just make sure of something here. I'm making sure I'm not. Oh, okay. Sure. So we'll go through the Don Lemon case, January 19th, 2026. Our anti-ICE protesters disrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota. The protesters entered City's Church, it was called, and they chanted ICE out and confronted congregation. They targeted David Easterwood. He was the ICE field office director. He's also the pastor of that church, but he was not present at the church at the time of the protest. There was their assistant pastor, whatever, was running the service that day. And so they entered the church, they protested, they disrupted the service. And Don Lemon, who is a lifelong or a career journalist, he wasn't just a guy with a GoCam helmet or whatever. He's an actual journalist, and he was covering it. And people on the right want to make it out like he was an instigator. He was the organizer. He was responsible for it, where his defense is that he was just there to cover it. And this brings up, I think it's an interesting topic to talk about, because there's basically four essential elements to the First Amendment. There's the freedom of speech, right? And there's the freedom of protest. And then there's the freedom of the press. And then there's the freedom of religion. And so there is the congregation's right to have their religious service without being interrupted. There is the disruptor's right to protest. There is Don Lemon's right to cover this as a member of the media, and there's everybody's right to speech. So I think this is an interesting case because it includes all four aspects of the First Amendment. And I think a lot of times, outside of the Second Amendment, mostly when we talk about, America's a free country, what we're talking about is the First Amendment, not the entire. We're not thinking about, like the right to sue somebody for over $20 or whatever. So the Trump Department of Justice threatened FACE Act charges against the protesters, and they actually have now charged Don Lemon and 3 others. 2 of them are protesters, and there's 1 other journalist. This is the first time any reporter has ever been charged under the FACE Act. It is not the first time the FACE Act has been charged. We'll go through what I think is probably the most similar incident to this protest in terms of when, right wingers were violating it. And, that typically has to do with abortion clinics. That's the main reason that the act was passed. The church part was like a compromise tie-in, but the main reason, and we'll go into the history, was to block abortion clinics. And so it has been charged for that reason, but no, they've had their reporters come cover it, but no reporter's ever been charged with participating in the thing by covering it. The Trump administration first tried to prosecute it. They brought a warrant to U.S. Magistrate Judge Douglas Micco, and he refused to sign it. He struck down the FACE Act charges against 2 of the protesters, and wrote no probable cause on arrest warrant. So he just flat out denied that this law was broken and that this was an appropriate thing to do it. And this judge, in case, of course, the Trump administration, every time they get knocked down by a judge, they right away start screaming that it's a liberal activist judge or whatever. Well, this guy is extremely conservative. He was appointed by W. He used to be a clerk for Alito. He is part of this conservative judicial organization in Minnesota, like the most conservative judicial organization in Minnesota there is. So it's not like he is this left-leaning, hippie tree-hugging dude. He is very, very conservative. And even he was like looking at this and saying, no, this is not what that's supposed to be. But the Trump Department of Justice did not care, and they arrested Lemon anyway. Check and see if I've got some comments coming in. Sounds like peaceful protest against a rogue regime. The Don Lemon no case. Yeah, exactly. At least that the judge agrees with you. If it was MAGA in a mosque, there'd be outrage. Hypocrites. Yeah. There was actually, we'll cover that, but it was there is a flip side. This is more of Muslims in a synagogue that has been also prosecuted by Trump. Bananas and rice. Those are 2 of the 4 things apparently that help with diarrhea, by the way. How about when Trump tear gassed peaceful protesters to stand with the Bible? And to be fair, he was holding the Bible upside down so he wouldn't catch on fire. The pastor did it as was a public service. You jave to ask them to leave before they can be trespassed the law. Learn it. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. You have to ask them to leave before they can. Oh, yeah. We'll talk more about what the laws are in a minute. And we have to distinguish between 2 things also. One is the right of the protesters to protest. Well, 3 things. One is the right of the protesters to protest. The second thing is the right of the congregation to worship without being interrupted. And the third thing is the right of Bob Lemon to cover the protest. Imagine lemon not knowing in reality. It's just like bananas and rice. I don't know why it matters if Lemon knew that it was a protest, but that does not mean Lemon was participating in the protest. You think that, when conservatives go and cover a protest of a abortion clinic where they're violating the FACE Act and blocking the doors, they didn't know what was going to happen? Like, there's a difference between covering a protest and participating in the protest. So we have to, like, bear in mind with all of these things, with everything like this, I always say it's got to be consistent. So if you feel a certain way, then if the roles were reversed, you would still feel the same way. So, do you think that every time somebody covers a protest of an abortion clinic, they should go to jail for that? So, the next thing we need to do is look at what the law actually says, because I think this to me is pretty important. I didn't know the actual wording of the law, and that wording is really, really critical. The wording is force prohibits using force, threat of force, or physical obstruction to interfere with people obtaining reproductive health services or exercising religious freedom at places of worship. So were they physically interacting with the worshipers? Were the protesters physically interacting with the worshipers? Were they physically preventing worshipers from entering the church? Because that's what the law is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about just being disruptive. It's whether or not they were the FACE Act itself is about whether or not you're physically preventing them from being able to worship. Now you can say, well, they were yelling, but that's not physical. And you can say, does that mean it's okay then? And it's like, no, it just means it's not a violation of the FACE Act. There are other laws, misdemeanor laws, which can and possibly are being prosecuted. It's just whether it's a violation of the FACE Act and the KKK Act that they're prosecuting them with. And whether or not Lemon broke any law at all. I mean, these are, you have to be precise in what you're discussing here. It's not just, oh, somebody did something bad, and so whatever Trump says must be true. Key language does not prohibit peaceful picketing or other peaceful demonstration protected by the First Amendment. And here, I think that there are some people that have come to understand peaceful in the wrong way. Peaceful means nonviolent. Peaceful does not mean quiet. You don't have to whisper your protest chants. You don't have to, the Boston Tea Party, I keep bringing it up. The Boston Tea Party was not, just sweetness and sugar. There was there was yelling they were yelling at the Boston Tea Party. When they talk about peaceful protests, they're talking about nonviolent protests. They're not talking about being polite. See, too much of this, nonsense being thrown around about agitators and stuff. There's no such thing as an agitator, really. That's just a word that Donald Trump made up and the right-wing media made up in order to discredit people that were legitimately exercising their constitutional right to protest. Bananas and rice. It's always nice. Hello, Kitty. How you doing? My good buddy Kitty just popped on. Just sending her. Became physical when they breached the doors. It did not, according to the law, Spirit. I mean, you can have your opinion on that, but the legal language is very clear. It was not forceful when they breached the doors. That is not what the wording means there. That's not the way the statute has been historically interpreted. That's not what Congress meant when they passed it. I feel that you should. I should what? I don't know. Wasn't it one night? I don't know. Yes, and your fantastic thought process. This is just like the Boston Tea Party. Thank you. Yes. I mean, whoops. I meant to type that in the private chat, Kitty, but you know what I meant, right? All right. So just and you thought my thing anyway. So where are we at? We're here. Okay, prohibits using force, threat of force, or physical obstruction to interfere with people obtaining reproduction health services, people exercising religious places of freedom of working. Okay, so we already covered that. The penalties, if you violate this, your first time nonviolent offense is up to 6 months, a $10,000 fine. First time offense in general, up to 1 year, $100,000 fine. So like a nonviolent offense would be like you're blocking the door and you're not touching anybody, but you're not letting anybody pass. First time offense general, up to 1 year, $100,000 fine. Subsequent nonviolent, up to 18 months, $25,000 fine. Up to 3 years, $25,000 fine. If it's violent, bodily injury, you can get up to 10 years in prison. If death results, up to life in prison. So you can have some pretty harsh penalties, but as far as anybody has been able to establish, there was no physical contact between any of the protesters and any of the congregants. There was one congregant that said that he was pinned up against the wall by some protesters, not Bob Lemon. So that's kind of where that sits at. So let's hang on a second. I want to check in on. Okay. So that we'll get to the Epstein files in a minute, or well, okay. No, that's not the law, Spirit. That's the point. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. That is not what the law says. When the law says forcible, it means forcible. It does not mean they walked through the door. I have an agitator in my washing machine. I used to, but now I have like one of those sideways washing machines. They did interfere with people practicing there. They didn't do it forcibly. Like I said, there are other charges that could be brought. There are misdemeanor charges against those things. This is not about whether what they did was wrong or not. What's the question here is whether or not what they did is a violation of the FACE Act, which it wasn't, according to the actual intent and language of the law, which we'll go through all that. How is that's what they what does FACE mean in FACE Act? It's like an acronym. Freedom of access to clinic entrances. Well, oh, actually that's covered in here. But this is let's talk a little bit about what it means and how it's been prosecuted in the past. And then maybe you'll understand when I'm talking about how you interpret it, you might change your mind when you look at it from a different perspective. The primary reason we have it is back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, there was an increasing problem with violence against abortion clinics. They would have like literal blockades to prevent pregnant women from being able to get in there, physically, forcibly block women from entering the abortion clinics. Sometimes they would even beat and injure the women that were trying to go in. There were over 1,000 violent acts against physicians and patients. There were 41 bombings of the clinics, 175 arsons, 9 murders, and 17 attempted murders. The Army of God bombed or set fire to 100 plus clinics. So when we're talking about forcibly, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about a pro-life person just like going into the clinic and handing out flyers or something. It was the literal physically impeding and preventing somebody from being able to access the clinic. And like Dr. David Gunn was shot and killed outside his Florida clinic. Dr. George Tiller was shot and wounded in Kansas. And Dr. John Britton and his bodyguard were murdered in Florida. I actually interviewed somebody on the show that was a coworker of Britton's. And this is where we were at in the 90s. We were abortion providers were literally being killed. That's why there's that whole provision about being killed with it. So they passed the FACE Act with bipartisan support. It was 69-30 in the Senate, and it was signed by Bill Clinton on May 26, 1994. The result was murders, bombings, arson dropped 30% after enforcement began. Okay, so from 1994 to 2024, there's been 211 total FACE Act cases. It's been charged 211 times. 205 times against pro-life activists, 6 against pro-choice activists for blocking and interfering with these kind of pro-pregnancy clinics. So it's you can say it's like lopsided in favor of the pro-choice thing, but it's much more common among the pro-life thing. Under Biden, he prosecuted it 24 times for a total of 55 defendants. And I think in all of those cases, it was pro-life people prosecuting or blocking abortion clinics. So this is what I mean. Like when I say forcible, I do not mean making life unpleasant for people that were trying to access the clinic. I mean, like literally beating them, preventing them from being able to access the healthcare that they wanted, taking the lives of the people that were providing that healthcare. Okay. I don't know. Well, I mean, you'd have to go back to 1993 and tell them about it. So Christians can enter an abortion clinic under the guise of needing an abortion and then protest against people having abortions legally because it's not about whether you broke in or not. It's not about whether they're in there or not. That's the whole point. The whole point is whether or not you're forcibly preventing people from being able to enter. You can be in there handing out flyers as long as you're not interrupting somebody's ability to receive the health care that they want. It's nothing to do with, like, I think you're trying to interpret the law according to the way that you have learned it under this false learning. Like the law is never meant to be about whether or not people enter, and that's the opposite of what I am saying. I am saying Christians can enter an abortion clinic They don't even need to be under the guise of needing an abortion. They can walk into any abortion clinic they want and peacefully hand out flyers and say, hey, don't get it. Like, as long as they're not physically impeding somebody from being able to access their health care, they can do that. They don't need to pretend to be that they're there to get an abortion. How many babies were murdered in that same time frame? 0. Pro-pregnancy healthcare. Yes, abortion is healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. Yes, absolutely, emphatically. All right, so this is the history of how the FACE Act has always been prosecuted. These are the ways that it was prosecuted under Biden. Molotov cocktails were thrown at a Planned Parenthood in 2022. BB guns fired at a clinic 11 times. Spray painted threatening messages on multiple pregnancy and fire bombings of clinic buildings. These involved actual property damage, weapons, threats. So there was no property damage. There were no threats. There were no weapons. There was no physical damage to anyone or anything done at this protest in the church. So I'm not saying that what they did was okay, and I'm not saying what they did was legal. What I am saying is what they did is not a violation of the FACE Act. Because the FACE Act requires there be something forcible, there be something physical involved there. If you were to say that that should be the case or that is the case, then you would have to go back and admit that like thousands of people that have protested abortion clinics since 1993 were in violation of the law in the same way. The Hippocratic Oath does not say it's not healthcare. Okay, so, and we're not gonna spend the whole day debating abortion. So, just put a pin in that little debate because that's not relevant to what we're talking about. We're talking about the law against abortion clinics and how the FACE Act was passed and why. So, nonviolent pro-life protest strategy. They do this thing where they're not violent, but they enter abortion clinic facilities. They sit in front of the clinic doors and they block women from going in. Now, if they let women pass, what they're doing is legal. If they physically don't let women pass, then what they're doing is against the FACE Act. The whole thing is about whether or not they prevent people physically from being able to access the clinic. They talk to women scheduled for abortions. That's legal. They refuse to leave until physically removed by police. That becomes illegal, but it's not a violation of the FACE Act. Like if they're asked to leave and they stay, that's trespassing and that's against the law. But it's not a violation of the FACE Act. We have to define the law by the law, and we have to, be consistent, right? Were those people protesting the church? Were they trespassing? Yes. Were they in violation of the FACE Act? No. And then the Red Row Rescues. This is one of the groups that was prosecuted by Biden, and by the Biden administration. Biden himself did not personally really get involved with the Department of Justice. He thinks that it should be separated, and he kept himself separated from it in spite of what Trump says. But the Red Rose Rescue's stated goal is, for as long as they are present and trespassing, no abortions will be performed. So their goal is to stop women from getting abortions, that women that want them, women that can get them legally. This is not in states where it's legal. illegal. This is only in states where it's legal. So they are preventing women from getting legal health care. And that is against the law. That is against the PACE Act. If they are doing that, if they're blocking health care, they are violating the Health Act. So in Tennessee, there was a prosecution where 11 people or 6 people were convicted, including a guy named Paul Vaughn that faced up to 11 years in prison. He actually got like 6 months of house arrest. Several demonstrators sat in front of the clinic doors and blocked at least one patient and at least one employee from entering. This is physical obstruction, exactly what the PACE Act prohibits. You cannot do that. That's against the law. That is against the PACE Act. This is if you want to draw a comparison, it would be like if people sat in front of the church and had the stated goal that they want to prevent people from worshiping, and they sat in front of the church doors and prevented people from entering. So Paul Vaughn was convicted of PACE Act violations. He was sentenced up to 6 months home confinement, 3 years supervised release. He was later pardoned by Donald Trump. So if you think that Donald Trump was right to pardon him, then you should not be thinking that it is right for Trump to prosecute these protesters. Either everybody has to, anyway, I don't, because what he did was even worse than what you're saying that they did. Because he prevented somebody from exercising their constitutional rights. They did not. Other activists received varying sentences. Lauren Handy got 57 months in prison. Paulette Haro, 24 months in prison, and Bevelyn Williams, 41 months in prison. And Trump pardoned all of them too. So Biden also added the DOJ, the PACE Act with the Ku Klux Klan charges. I actually disagree with this. It was the first time in history he used abortion clinic protesters, increased potential sentences significantly based on conspiracy to bribe people of constitutional rights. This was a controversial but legally novel enforcement approach. And this is also what now the Trump Department of Justice is doing. I disagree with Biden having done it. I disagree with Trump doing it because I think that's overcharging. And especially in the case with the church, their goal was not to prevent them from worshiping. The goal was to protest the pastor that was an ICE guy. My face is an act of violence. Well, thank you. Constitutional rights, the baby violated. Okay, so why does just out of curiosity, if somebody is conceived here, are they an American citizen? Because I'm pretty sure the Constitution says that right begins when you're born, right? It's called birth for a reason. If somebody were to be conceived here and then go to France before they're born, and then the baby's born in France, can they run for president? Seems like you're inconsistent. If life begins at conception, according to the Constitution, then it should be that they're citizens and they can run for president if they're conceived here. But that's not what the Constitution says. I'm not going to get into a big moral quandary about when life begins. I'm just saying, according to the Constitution, it begins at birth. The host is a racist. I have no idea what I said about anything to do with race at all. Bet all those baby souls disagree with you, but do you really think that? I'm really curious. What kind of God do you believe in? Do you think that God punishes babies for being aborted? Like, what kind of God do you have? How evil do you think God is? That he would send people to hell for all eternity when they never even drew a breath because their mother got an abortion. Does this also apply to miscarriages? Like, do miscarried babies also burn in hell for all eternity for having been miscarried? Like, that's a pretty sick and twisted interpretation. And you have to be a sick and twisted interpretation person to relay that interpretation. Does a fetus have constitutional rights? No. When does a human start to be a citizen? At birth. Okay. That is the facts. You can decide, you can have a different opinion on it, but the facts are the facts. There's nothing in the Constitution or in law that suggests that there is a pre-birth citizenship. So Biden's enforcement was consistent with the law. The FACE Act prevents physical obstruction to interfere with reproductive services. Court records show Red Rose protesters physically sat in front of clinic doors, blocked patients and employees from entering, prevented clinic from operating. This is exactly what the statute prohibits. Biden DOJ enforcement was appropriate application of the law. So let's look at the Red Rose protesters versus the city's church protesters. The FACE Act prohibits physical obstruction to interfere with reproductive services. The court records show Red Rose protesters physically sat in front of the doors, blocked patients and employees from entering, prevented clinic from operating. Comparing so the Red Rose, they entered the clinic facility. The Minnesota protesters, they entered the church during service. Red Rose sat in front of doors and physically blocked entry. Minnesota church, they chanted, confronted congregation, but they did not block the doors. They did not physically. The sitting in front of doors is physical. Chanting and confronting the congregation is verbal. The Red Rose, they prevented patients and employees from entering. That's physical. Minnesota church protests, they disrupted worship but did not block entry. That's verbal. So the result is in the Red Rose rescues case, they were convicted. They got past a grand jury, got past a jury, got past a judge, and it got all the way to the stage of conviction. They were convicted, and then they were pardoned by Donald Trump. But according to the law, what they did was wrong. According to Trump, according to pro-life advocates, it wasn't wrong. But according to the law, it was wrong. According to the law, what the protesters in Minnesota did, according to the FACE law, what they did was not against that law. Again, know how you people can like just not understand when I say things that are nuanced or qualified. I think that what they did was wrong. I think what they did was illegal. I think it was a misdemeanor. I think it was trespassing. And I think there's other statutes which prohibit you from being able to, like state statutes, which prohibit you from being able to interfere with religious services that they violated. But it was not a violation of the FACE Act, and it was not a violation of the Ku Klux Klan Act. By the way, it's Ku Klux Klan, not Ku Klux Klan. I get so it's like fingers on the chalkboard when I hear people call it the Ku Klux Klan. It's not. It's KU, not KLU. Anyway, that's my little rant on that. So different conduct had different outcomes. This is exactly what the statute prohibits. Biden DOJ enforcement was appropriate application of the law. So that's a big thing. All right. Physical versus verbal. Do we have any comments on that? Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, we're still talking about. Oh, we're no new comments. Awesome. All right, so now let's the intent. So the first thing is what kind. Oh, whoops. Face act requiring acting in order to. So first is the verbal versus physical, right? The second thing is what is the intent. And again, you got to go to the language of the law, which the language of the law is it says that you're doing this in order to prevent the worship, or you're doing it to prevent the access to healthcare. Face act requires acting in order to intimidate or intentionally interfere with the protected rights. Red Rose Rescues explicit intent stop abortions from happening. That is their words. No abortions will happen as long as we're in there. Action physically blocked clinic doors. Result successfully prevented clinic operations. Both intent and conduct violated the FACE Act. Explicit intent stop abortions from happening. Action physically blocked clinic doors. Result successfully prevented clinic operations. Both intent and conduct violated the FACE Act. Now, on the church side, the Minnesota city's church intent to confront David Easterwood, Icefield office director, about his role. The target was Easterwood as a government official, not the church as a place of worship. Easterwood wasn't even present at the service, which they should have turned around and gone away. Like they should have never gone in there in the first place. And I disagree with what they did. I disagree with them behaving in that manner. I think that they should be prosecuted under, the laws that they actually broke. I think they should be prosecuted for trespassing and for violating, for the misdemeanor of disrupting church services. They did not violate the FACE Act. That's overcharging. It's over prosecuting. They disrupted the service, which they should be prosecuted, but did not physically block entry to worship. So they did not violate the FACE Act. They weren't, the target was not to deny civil rights. And their goal was not to violate civil rights. And they didn't block the door and physically interfere. So they didn't violate the FACE Act. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's whether or not they violated this specific law, which they are being charged with. Disruption was a side effect of confronting the absent official. And again, I know that you have trouble with nuance, but you can be wrong in one thing and not be wrong in everything. And you can be not wrong in one thing and then still be wrong in other things. And it's not just me that thinks that. Judge Micko found no probable cause for FACE Act charges. Likely reasons: no physical blocking of access to worship. He didn't even explain it. He just said that, there's no probable cause on the warrant. He just signed it. Or he just wrote no probable cause on it. Likely reasons: no physical blocking of access to worship, no force or threat of force. Intent was to confront government official, not prevent religious exercise. Easterwood, the target, wasn't even there. FACE Act requires specific elements not present in this case. Should I be arrested for disrupting service by driving with my radio too loud? No. I don't understand why that question would even be there. Why would you think that that's even being suggested here? The different, if you drove in, if you walked in, like let's say you walked into a church with your boombox on, and do they still call it, they don't even really have boomboxes, but it's back in the 80s. Let's say it's back in the 80s. You got your boombox on your shoulder and you walk in there and you're listening to, Motorhead or whatever, and you got it blasted up all the way, and you walk in there, and then they ask you to leave, and you don't leave. At that point, you're trespassing and you're being disruptive, and yes, you should be prosecuted for that. Um, to support you. Oh, okay. So yeah, I gotcha. Thought you were asking rhetorically. Well, with the other answer. Um, it's been troll heavy here this morning, or this afternoon. All right. So the two major differences are one, what they did, and number two, why they did it. You know, what they did was very different. Why they did it was also very different. So now that's the protester side of things. We've still got to talk about Bob Lemon and his side of things. Did Bob Lemon break any laws? Because the protesters could have broken laws. That does not by extension mean Bob Lemon did. So were journalists covering the Red Rose rescues? Yes. They were not charged. LifeSite news reporter, pro-life reporters were on that scene recording the whole thing. They were not charged. So when you talk about, being consistent and stuff, are you consistent? Are you consistent? Yes, and they were not charged. LifeSite news reporter Stephen Cox. He was president. What a name. Boy, that guy's got to have a tough life. Anyway, present at Red Rose Rescue in did what do you think, Kitty? Would it be hard to go through life with the last name Cox? I wonder if he has a brother named Dick. Anyway, okay, so sorry. So he was president at the Red Rose Rescue in Grand Rapids, Michigan in May 2020. He documented the protest. 5 rescuers were arrested for blocking the clinic. Cox was not charged. Comment magazine journalist. He was inside the clinic documenting events. You can say, well, Bob Lemon was in the church. Well, so is this comment magazine journalist. He was inside the clinic documenting events. He was not charged. So you can be in the church. There's also I was thinking about the January 6th. There were some reporters who were charged, and there were some reporters who weren't charged. The ones who were charged were ones that actually took part in the protest of the protesting side of things. They and like one of them that was charged, for instance, was even like he was afterwards. He was saying that he's not just there to cover it. He is a part of the protesters, and he's going to be part of history or whatever. If you watch during the streaming, Bob Lemon repeatedly says throughout the whole thing, he is not a protester. He's just there as a reporter. So he, he's not doing any protesting. So the journalist double standard. This is what the Republicans have. Journalists covering a clinic blockades or inside facilities during the obstruction. They documented people blocking doors. No charges were filed. Dom Lemon was covering the church protest. He was inside the church during disruption. He documented protesters who weren't blocking entrance and weren't arrested and charged. So it's interesting that even the protesters that are allegedly breaking the law he is being charged with aren't being charged with it, but somehow he is guilty of a conspiracy and this same crime that they didn't commit because they didn't actually commit the crime. It's starting to feel like it's more about Bob Lemon than it is about the FACE Act. So there's also the other side of things. What about attacks on churches under Biden? There were over 400 documented attacks. 436 on the in just in 2023 alone. Well, that seems like a computational error of some sort. Anyway, types of attacks. There was arson. There was like a Virgin Mary statue that was beheaded, like a $30,000 statue, hands cut off of Christ statues, window smash, satanic graffiti, bomb threats, gun threats. These were all in relation to pro-choice things. And, a lot of these things were prosecuted, but they weren't prosecuted under the FACE Act. They were prosecuted as what they were, like vandalism and, that kind of thing. They weren't, he didn't upscale them. The FACE Act was prosecuted the same way everybody else, including Trump 1, had prosecuted it. FACE Act prosecutions for church attacks up until this administration, between 1994 and 2024, those 30 years, Clinton 0, Bush 0, Obama 0, Trump 0, Biden 0. So nobody had ever prosecuted the church end of this thing until Trump. Then Trump came along for his second term. There was one prosecution that Biden had, but not for the FACE Act, for one of the church crimes. And that was when they destroyed a $30,000 Italian Virgin Mary statue, sprayed windows, sprayed anti-Catholic graffiti, and all that stuff. And they were charged with destruction of religious property, not the FACE Act. So again, it's not like anybody's saying that it's okay the other way around. It's just, it's not a violation of the FACE Act. So the historical application, over 30 years of practice, FACE Act was historically only used for clinic access, and it was literally written for that. That's why it is called the against clinic entrance. Like it's not against church entrance. No administration ever used the church position, includes both Democrat and Republican administrations. So since 1994, you got a good 12, 13 years, almost half of that time was Republican administrations. Biden continued this 30-year pattern, not hypocrisy, consistency with historical enforcement. Every previous administration did the same. The first case, this is actually the second time that Trump is using this. The first time was there was a case in New Jersey where there was a thing between, like, a conflict between some Zionists and some Muslims, and the Trump administration is saying that the Muslims caused the disruption, and the state, not the Muslims, but the actual state is saying it was the other way around, and that the Zionists caused it. Anyway, the federal government is prosecuting the Muslim people under the FACE Act for that. I don't know too much about it beyond just 5 minutes of reading, so I'm not going to try and pretend like I know exactly what happened. I'm just saying that there's a dispute over who says who did what. But that one, there was actual violence happened. So that might be more reasonable to, if it was prosecuted, if the federal government's view of things is correct, then that's actually an appropriate application of the law, because it would be violent and forceful. What happened in Minnesota was not violent or forceful. The new precedent and following cases, January 26th, second use for the Minnesota church, first president in 30 years to use this provision. But here's the other thing, is it's not just, okay, oh wait, we've got some. Mark says, have a good stream. I kind of need to. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Hey there. It's my favorite pothead. Herbs and animals are real life. So, all right. Now, the other side of things is how Trump is handling the original intent of the law, which, as I've said, was actually initially it was about supposed to be protecting abortion clinics, right? So he's kind of gone and he's first of all he's provided pardons for people that sat in front of clinic doors and blocking access. He blocked patients and employees from entering and convicted under law for exact conduct statute prohibits. So he's pardoned people that were on the, that were trying to prevent women from getting their right to health care. And Trump calls that weaponization for some reason, because anything he doesn't like is weaponization. Like the literal point of the law being followed is weaponization of government. So anyway, he pardoned everybody that has like the 23 people that were convicted under Biden. So now the new policy, and he by executive order, he decided he was going to rewrite the law. Future abortion-related prosecutions only in extraordinary circumstances, requires death, seriously bodily harm, or serious property damage. So he's just tacitly now saying that you can prevent women from entering abortion clinics as long as you don't hurt them. He dropped 3 pending cases. So like this is, if he is, but meanwhile he's prosecuting people that didn't block anybody or hurt anybody in churches. So he's got, now he's flipped everything upside down. It's like if you don't even have to break the actual FACE Act on the religious side to get prosecuted for it, but if you break the literal letter of the law on the abortion clinic side, which was the whole point of the thing being written, well then, c'est la vie. Future cases need approval from Assistant AG for Civil Rights. Essentially ended enforcement against clinic protesters. So he basically just annulled the entire law for the clinic side, not for the, and then he is misusing it and overcharging it on the religious side. All right, so Trump's reversal, limiting enforcement. Future abortion-related persecutions only in extraordinary circumstances, requires death, serious bodily harm, or serious property damage. He dropped 3 pending charges. Future cases need approval from this is all just repeat. Sorry about that. Trump administration on FACE Act, a tale of 2 approaches. For people who physically blocked doors, he pardoned them, called prosecutions weaponization, and limited future enforcement. For people who disrupted church but didn't block access, pursuing charges despite judge rejection, arrested journalists covering and using provision dormant for 30 years. So how is this not a double standard? How is this not inconsistent? So what this actually reveals is that Biden administration enforced law as written for over 30 years, prosecuted actual physical obstruction of clinic access, continued historical enforcement pattern, the whole reason that the law was written in the first place, and had a consistent, even application. Trump administration pardoned those convicted of physical obstruction, ended enforcement against clinical protesters. He's pursuing charges where conduct doesn't meet the statute, and selective enforcement based on his own politics. He is literally, I know this is going to be a shock to people, but he is literally doing the thing when she is blaming the other side of doing. I know. Trump projecting. Say it ain't so, Sam. Say it ain't so. Why didn't Democrats understand what interfering means? Obstructing. There's many words we just don't understand. Because we do understand. It says forcibly. Maybe you weren't here when we went through that whole section, but it's got to be physical. It's physical. It's got to be physical. It says the word forcible is in there. Why don't you understand that? The crime is not bowing to Trump. Yes. And they even say things like, if you just bowed to Trump, everything would be fine. And people that bow to Trump, and especially pay Trump, literally get pardons if they pay enough. So it's more about Trump than it is about the law. Orange man bad. Well, the orange man is bad, but he's not bad because he's orange. I mean, he's bad because he's bad. This is like a knee-jerk defense. Like, did I say orange man bad here anywhere in this entire thing? No. But he's prosecuting people exercising their First Amendment rights. He's prosecuting a man for, you know, being a member of the free press. So that is bad. That he's orange is just tangential, or maybe I should say tangerine-ental. All right, so whoops. Why this matter? The law becomes a political tool. People lose faith in equal justice, and the system appears corrupt. This is definitely like, I even have people, I have a, like I've lived all over the world, so I have Facebook friends all over the world. I have a Facebook friend that lives in Nigeria. And even he was like, what is going on over there? After the Preddy killing and the justification of the Preddy killing. He's just like, what is going on over there? When you have people in Nigeria wondering how we got so corrupt, then you got to really think about it. Our system appears corrupt because it has become corrupt. And it's the precedent for future abuse. So what if we just now, let's say the next president comes along and just wants to prosecute anybody that's pro-life that ever walks into an abortion clinic or something. Like, this is why laws matter. This is why the wording in the law matters. This is why when it says forcible, it must be forcible. The FACE Act was meant to protect rights, now being used to punish political opponents while protecting allies. Key takeaways. The Red Rose protesters actually did physically block clinic doors and had appropriate prosecution. Church protesters did not block access to worship. Judge found no probable cause. Biden enforced the FACE Act, consistent with 20 years of precedent. No administration used church provision for 30 years until Trump. Trump pardoned clinic blockers while prosecuting church disruptors. Trump arrested journalists covering event. Well, actually, two journalists, which is completely unprecedented. And this is one-sided selective enforcement, not both sides. I think there's a lot of, like, people always want to both sides things. This is not a both sides thing. This is one side acting, and not just one side. This is one person and his administration. Other Republican presidents did not do this. Whoops. I messed this one up. All right, so I've got to fix that slide. Sorry. But basically, that last slide is just pointing out it's got the Minnesota statute. Again, it's just to point out that this is not saying that I think it should be legal, or that I don't think those protesters did anything wrong, or that I'm not saying it's legal to go in and disrupt a church service. I'm saying it is not a violation of the FACE Act. So yes, there are things they did wrong. There are things they did illegal, and they should be prosecuted for the illegal things they did. But they should not be charged with the FACE Act because they did not violate the FACE Act. Yeah, that's like saying mustache man bad. That's perfect. I love that. So I kind of sped through that on purpose a little bit because there's another thing that we can talk about today that some of you might find interesting. The Epstein files, a whole bunch of them were released. And the person who takes care of the Epstein wiki, can I put you on, Kitty? No? Uh-oh.
I'm like right in the middle of going through, and I'm trying to contact the oversight committee because there are at least 6 sets of pictures that they didn't fucking redact the girls' pictures. And so I'm trying to contact the oversight committee to try and get them to do something about that. So but we have definitive data on Orange Daddy. I sent you one of the hottest things we've pulled down already. They've already redacted it, or they've already removed anybody else from getting it, but we've got it. So I sent you a link from the Epstein Wiki on it if you want to go over it. But right now I really got to focus on trying to get these logged, some of these logs, so I can get the oversight committee to protect these girls.
Okay. Yeah, that's more important for sure. I'll go and look at what you've got so far and see if I can find anything on social media.
I'm around a little bit.
Feel free to knock.
I'm telling you though, the document that I sent you has some great highlights that are already highlighted for you to read.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Okay.
Bye. I'll be here.
Whoops. All right. So we are going to share this tab. We're going to learn this stuff together. I got so involved in the whole Bob Lemon thing that I just didn't have time to look at the wiki thing at all. So courts have upheld laws that prohibit disturbing the order and solemnity of worship services, emphasizing that religious services are not public protest zones. And I agree with that. And like I said, I absolutely agree that they should be prosecuted for any laws they broke. I am also saying that the face law is not a law they broke. And Bob Lemon was covering a protest. And so his actions are separate from the actions of protesters. And the reason I point this out is that there were people in the press who covered other prosecuted and convicted violations of the FACE Act. There were actual violations of the FACE Act, and there were reporters there. They were not prosecuted. They were there covering blocking of abortion clinics. These were from pro-life magazines and pro-life websites. They were not prosecuted. So the selection here in the to be the first person prosecuted would be to say that pro-life journalists should be jailed for covering abortion protests at abortion clinics. It's about whether the FACE Act applies, not whether they broke any laws. I said it at least 2 or 3 times that I think that they should be prosecuted for the actual laws they broke. And I got to fix the last slide, but even in the last slide, I even cited the Minnesota statutes that they violated, that they should be prosecuted for. Okay, well, whatever. Well, but then that also applies to every other conservative journalist that's ever covered any immigrant. I mean, this is not actually time. This is no, I disagree with that. It does not cover here. That does not apply. Time, manner, and place restrictions for journalism. No, that doesn't apply. If it did apply, then you would have to agree that every single reporter that ever covered any violation of the FACE Act should also be prosecuted. And it's never, ever happened. Yeah, as again, not one journalist has ever been prosecuted for covering a violation of the FACE Act, even though I had a whole section on that, dude. I actually asked about that specifically for that reason. Churches are generally open to public. First Amendment means that we can say almost anything, anywhere we are allowed to be. And they weren't there to protest worship. They were protecting a church, protesting a church leader. Right. And that was covered too. But like, you know, I mean, other journalists have covered things, have covered protests that were considered illegal. And the journalists were not prosecuted for covering it. The only instances I could find where journalists were prosecuted for covering protests were when they actually participated in the protest and broke laws independent of their coverage. So like in January 6th, when people that, when journalists that were, you know, like independent journalists participated in things like breaking things, they were prosecuted. The being a member of the press doesn't give you license to commit crimes, but the actual coverage was not prosecuted. Okay. All right. So there is, if you look in the descriptions, Shane, there is a link to the slideshow I went through that goes through all of that. But I agree that what they did was illegal. I agree that what the protesters did was illegal. And I agree they should be prosecuted. On the last slide, I even have the Minnesota statute that they violated. And I also think that they trespassed. But I don't know if there might be a federal, I think there are federal laws against trespassing, but I think it has to be on federal property. But I think they should be prosecuted for what they did. I think that the people in the church had a right to worship and, you know, not be violated. But this is not a violation of the FACE Act, because the FACE Act requires they physically prevent people from being able to enter the church. Imagine claiming ICE is untrained and you want a revolution and getting popped over and over again. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean or how it's relevant. Yes, both illegal, both should be prosecuted. Not a violation of the FACE Act. Your rights and where mine begins. Yes. Well, and no, that's the point, Texas. They didn't violate the law. That was the whole point of going through what the actual law says. The actual law actually has to be broken in order for it to be broken. The law says that it has to be forcible. Forcible means prevented. Here, let me just bring this back up and go back to the beginning. Okay. Okay. So the judge refused to sign it, saying that there was no probable cause. The magistrate judge said they didn't break this law. All right. And then that's because the language of the law says prohibits using force, threat of force, or physical obstruction. Okay, there was no force, there was no threat of force, and there was no physical obstruction to people exercising religious freedom at places of worship. There were other laws violated, but the FACE Act was not one of them. You have to go by the actual, you can't just say close enough for government work and then just say that they violated a law. That's not the way the laws work. And there's also a distinction between the people who protested and Bob Lemon, who is covering the protest. You can't impede some's rights to exercise. No, you can't. And anyway, at some point, I don't know if you're not, I mean, this is after how many times have I said that? He's guilty of what? Churches are legally considered nonprofit organizations. No, they did. There is no evidence that they physically prevented anybody from entering the church or threatened anybody that entered the church. The more you know. This chat is adequate proof that MAGA is uneducated and a lost cause. I have to say, as far as this chat goes in this show, today is like they've raised the bar a little bit. At least they're not, yelling about trans people yet. MAGA doesn't care about the law or how it gets applied. Hiding behind First Amendment. What do you mean hiding behind the First Amendment? Exercising First Amendment. There's no hiding there. You don't get to follow a bank robbery with a camera and claim innocent. It's called a conspiracy. No, it's not. What about what about all the people that covered the clinic protests where the FACE Act was actually violated and people were prosecuted? How come the journalists that covered those were never prosecuted? Again, you've got to be consistent. You can't just have it halfway and do your side and forget the other side. No, stopping their services by yelling is not a physical obstruction, not according to the definition of the law. It has to be a forceful, absolutely physical obstruction. There have been many, many court cases where they have determined that yelling does not constitute a physical obstruction. Don Lemon, I'm sorry. Kelly, it's a Friday. You know why they call it Friday? Because your brain is fried. Thank you. I've been like wondering, Bob Lemon. I keep wondering. I'm like, oh man, Don Lemon, you're right. Dick Shirley should be arrested for propaganda and falsely accusing fraud. That's against the law. I don't know if that's against the law. I know he should be sued to hell. No, not this limit, young buck. No, that's not what conspiracy is. Oh my goodness. All right. No. This is not whataboutism, dude. This is about consistent application of the law. You are making, I'm not saying okay. You're too stupid to argue with. No, journalists have protections documenting something is not conspiracy. That's just such a dumb thing to say. My goodness. Does your mom ever regret birthing you? Goodness, what a stupid thing to say. I'm so tired of stupid. All right. On that, I'm going to go take a quick break here between this segment and the Weinstein section, or the Epstein section, Weinstein. Sorry for insulting you. I went too far. I apologize. Oh, he's been removed, but yeah. I'm so tired of just stupid things. Abolish the FACE Act. You don't know how the laws. Well, actually, we covered how the law was created. And we didn't know how. I remember vividly when that was all being created. There was so much violence. I remember when they beat a woman that was trying to get an abortion into having a miscarriage. Now that's some irony for you. Nick Shirley's punishment should be he has to spend 10 years working in a daycare center. Yes, that's right. And it's disrupting things does not. So Amadou says, and just disrupting things does not violate FACE. They should have to be physically stopping people from entering the church, not just being loud, not saying the protesters didn't do anything illegal. And that's exactly the point. They were trespassing. They were violating other laws. And I got the statute. I can't remember what it is in the slideshow there. It's on the last page. But yes, what they did was illegal. What they did was not against the FACE Act. And the FACE Act carries extra charges that, this doesn't constitute. What they did was a misdemeanor. The FACE Act is a felony. Don Lemon arrested correctly. Well, that's an opinion that is not very consistent with like 99.9% of lawyers in the world. Nobody's uncovered any fraud at all. I absolutely know how laws are created, and Trump shouldn't use you mean the FACE Act. But I'm thinking you're probably doing text to speech, but actively encourage Congress to do what is necessary to repeal the act in its entirety. Well, why should it be repealed? The act exists for a reason. I mean, women were getting beaten. Doctors were getting killed. Clinics were getting vandalized. Like, other people in the world have the right to disagree with people without having, people have the right to do things you disagree with. I know that a lot of Republicans seem to struggle with that concept, but it is very valid. Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. Don Lemon is truly a lemon. Well, I hope he starts the gun. I hope that Bob Lemon, Don Lemon, I keep saying Bob Lemon. Don Lemon sent out a thing, like when life gets you lemons. Now what he needs to do is he needs to start a GoFundMe, and it should be Give Lemonade or Make Lemonade. Something like that. Lemonade. Get it? When life gives you lemons. All right. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes my puns. They entered the church for the soul. Yeah, I don't know why you're saying that. Nobody's arguing that what they did was not illegal. What we're arguing is that what they did was not a violation of the FACE Act. I have not heard a single. I've heard about 15 different former federal prosecutors say that the arrest was illegal. I know that the magistrate said that there was no due process. I know that several, like 2 or 3 people in the U.S. Attorney's Office refused to touch the case, and I think maybe 2 of them resigned or something. When you keep having people in the district attorney's office or the U.S. attorney's office, when you keep having people resign because they're being forced to prosecute people that they don't feel that those charges merit, that they did the things to merit those charges, at some point you got to start thinking maybe the Department of Justice is being weaponized. No, it would not be, as we've mentioned many, many times. So, like, let me go back to the thing. These are the kinds of things that are considered obstruction. Okay. So they had blockades. They used to have these blockades where they would literally prevent anybody from being able to get into the front door. They had over 1,000 violent acts against physicians or patients. So, like beating the crap out of the pastor, that would be considered a violation of the FACE Act. There were 41 bombings and 175 arsons. That would be a violation of the FACE Act. 9 murders, 17 attempted murders. Those would be violations of the FACE Act. Forcible doesn't just mean, he raised his voice. He didn't use his inside voice. They involve, you have to literally prevent people from being able to access. The primary reason that it was written is to prevent protesters from blocking access to the health care the women were looking for. They could stand outside the door and yell. They could go in and yell. But once they physically prevent someone from being able to do what they came there to do, then it became a violation of the FACE Act. What crown? I don't know what you mean by what does the crown mean? Yeah, and like a lot of the most it's this is I'm glad you brought this up. People go to clinics more than just but women were literally getting attacked while just trying to get fertility treatments. The FACE Act is necessary. It just hasn't been proven in this case. And I had a woman that provides abortion on the show about a year ago, and she the thing that she's an OBGYN, and she said that most of her job is either helping women to have babies or helping women to get pregnant. She was also did fertility, and she said only about 1 or 2% of what she does is provide abortions, but that becomes a necessary procedure for people. I'm sorry, but I hold the position that all lives are sacred, and abortion is, especially in the U.S. Well, I don't think it's genocide, because that's not what genocide means. How can it be genocide? That's how is that genocide? It doesn't even make sense. The word doesn't even fit that. Genocide means that you're trying to get rid of a particular class or segment or ethnicity or something. How is it genocide? That's not even a logical word to use. And it's not like law or something. It's not like a systemic thing the government is trying to get rid of. It's it's just a nice word to throw around, but it doesn't mean anything. You want to know what genocide is? Genocide is what Israel is doing in Gaza. I know people on the right knee jerk is to punish Don Lemon, but it's a bad law. Well, the law is not bad. The law is just not being properly enforced. Can you go into an abortion clinic and yell? Yes. You can go into an abortion clinic and yell without violating the FACE Act, I should say. Nobody is saying that going into the church and yelling wasn't illegal. What we're saying is that going into the church and yelling wasn't a violation of the FACE Act. Going into an abortion clinic and yelling, you could be asked to leave, like you might be asked to leave the church. And then if you didn't, you would be trespassing, which is illegal. But it wouldn't be a violation of the FACE Act. There's plenty more that would be considered a violation other than that. And they should, and that's why I even included the laws that they should actually be prosecuted for. Because I do think what they did is wrong. I spent 15 years as a minister. So it's not like I'm like this atheist guy that hates Christian worship or something. I think what they did is wrong, and I wouldn't want somebody coming into my church and doing that. But that does not make it a violation of the FACE Act. People harming others trying to get abortions, or the doctors who perform them, are wrong, but protesting outside an abortion clinic isn't illegal. Blocking entrance to an abortion clinic is illegal. And that there are reasons for it passing in the law, and that's because of several thousand instances of people preventing women from accessing healthcare. What the protesters did was trespassing and obstruction. They did not violate the FACE Act, and Lemon was documenting the protest, not taking part. And there were several times where he was clarifying that and saying, I am not part of this. I'm just covering it. Well, so do cows, but they don't brag. It seems that the verbiage of the act covers other avenues that it could be used for. The verbiage doesn't cover that. The verbiage says forcibly. It has the verbiage. The verbiage is force, threat of force, or physical obstruction. So, like, if you physically prevent somebody from entering you put your body in between the door and the person that's trying to enter the door, that is a physical obstruction. If you say, if you enter, I'm going to beat the crap out of you, that is a threat. If you actually beat the crap out of them, that is using force. That is what the law says. There's no law about, well, if you raise your voice. Autocorrect does not like me. You know what I thought I want to do is like get what I think would be cool is if you developed like this robot thing and you connected it to your car, and it's, you know how you got like the diagnostic thing in your car, and then you just like plug it into your diagnostic thing and it fixes the car, whatever's wrong with it. It just like little robot arms come out and stuff. And then you could call the app autocorrect. Oh, the crown, that crown in the chat. Oh, I'm in StreamYard. I broadcast to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X, but most of the viewers are in YouTube. So sometimes I there's like a YouTube relevant comment that I'm not aware of. We shall see how it plays out, though. Let's not fall for the speculation, and since I don't know what we're seeing, what plays out. What's played out is that the Department of Justice has just acted alone. I mean, the magistrate already said, like denied the warrant. So I don't know where they're even getting I mean, it's very, very unlikely that this thing ever ends up in a conviction. Probably gets thrown out before it gets to a trial. So what do you calling when they kill him? Nobody's killing any babies. Fetuses aren't babies. Because yelling into an abortion clinic doesn't stop abortions, right? Yelling into it. Well, but it's still not physical. And actually, you know what? The irony is, if you watch the video, do you know what they were doing while the protesters were protesting? They were praying. So it does not prevent prayer. And the whole point is the goal was not to prevent prayer or to prevent service. It was to find this ice guy that is a pastor there. So we covered all of that too in the slideshow. It's about one, there's what did they actually do? And then the other part is, why did they actually do it? And why they were doing it is they wanted to protest this ice guy. They weren't trying. The goal was not to prevent people from being able to pray and carry out their civil rights. And that was an effect. And I still say it was illegal what they did. It's just not a violation of the FACE Act. You have to look at what the actual law says. No, it's not. But anyway. 90% of abortions happen in the first trimester. It is already the only person in the Bible that ever performs an abortion is God. The Bible does not have a pro-life, like an anti-abortion position. There's nothing in the Bible that says abortion is a sin, and God actually terminates pregnancies. But I guess the big thing is they're only allowed maybe if you think that your wife was cheating on you and got pregnant. So if you got cucked and your wife got pregnant because you're a cuck, then you can force your wife to get an abortion. But she can't decide to get one. I wish that words were not. I wish that words were used properly. Abortion is not only and always meaning ending of life. There are procedures done under the abortion procedures to clean out the uterus, a DNC. Yes. The pro-life community is extremely dishonest. I mean, it's very, very not very Christian of them. There are so many lies that get they like this afterbirth abortions is nonsense. The partial birth abortions, they use all this language and stuff that's completely misleading. And the worst part about it is that they villainize the most the women who have no choice in getting an abortion. The late term abortion, by the way, is not a clinical term. It's actually just a made up pro-life term that means anything. They keep moving it up, but somewhere around 20 weeks on. It's not third semester. So there are a lot of people that, are just like midway through their second trimester. And those are called late term abortions when they're actually midterm abortions. But only less than 1% of abortions come after the 20th week. And most of those happen within the next, 4 weeks. Only like less than 1,000 abortions are after 25 weeks. And none are after 30 weeks. Now you're saying, well, why do you need, these late term abortions anyway? These are women that did not up and decide they didn't want the baby. These are almost universally because the health of the baby or the health of the mother is at stake. And they're extremely hard on the mother and the father most of the time. Because they wanted the baby. They're actually losing, as far as they're concerned, they're losing a child. And then they're villainized for losing a child. But it's like, there was one case where and when I talk about like the pro-life crowd is dishonest, there was a case where somebody was complaining that this woman wanted to get an abortion. She was stopped from getting one, and the baby literally had no lungs, like didn't have lungs, and was like a danger to her life to carry it to term. She was forced to carry it to term. She gave birth to it, and then it just sat there and suffocated. And she just had to watch it suffocate and die. She went through all of that just to watch this poor baby suffocate and die. What is the value in that? Oh, wait. Oh, dude, the show is called The Pun Show. It's the Pun Show. Yeah, you have no idea how many dad jokes I have. If you like dad jokes, check my I've got like these little things I do called machine puns, just little dad jokes. Magistrate judges are hired. Okay, other judges work for free? Supreme Court judges get paid? What do you mean they're hired? The magistrate judge was appointed by Bush, used to be a clerk to Alito. He's like one of the most conservative judges in the country. Words are used by this administration to incite anger. It's the same as defund the police. No one wanted to take all their funding. They wanted some of the funding to go towards training. Yeah. I mean, or to hire people that were actually qualified to do different things. Like police should not be responding to mental service calls. They end up just like killing people that have mental issues that wouldn't have been killed if they had been contacted by somebody that was a professional. What are fetus then? There's a thing called dictionaries. You can look it up. Fetuses aren't babies? No, fetuses aren't babies. If you look, at the actual definition of baby, which I am about to show you, which is probably going to offend somebody. Here, let me go over here. But words mean things. Baby, a very young child, especially one newly or recently born. The emphasis on the word baby is that they are actually born. Yes, people use it colloquially to, like, when is your baby due or whatever. But, the main meaning of the word is actually, yes, the human child that has recently been born. That's what a baby is. A fetus is still inside of you. And most people that, are feel like abortion should be a choice, the difference between a fetus and a baby when you're talking about like whether or not it's okay to have an abortion is viability. Most of us feel like if once a fetus becomes viable, that it can live outside of the womb, like then you can't have you shouldn't be able to have an abortion. As long as the baby is not viable, it's not an independent life yet. Well, that's not what it means in English. He was indicted by a grand jury. But that doesn't mean that the people get indicted and have the charges thrown out still because they're not valid. You people still want to pretend like Donald Trump was never indicted by a grand jury. Praying outside abortion clinics don't stop abortion, but people still get charged for it. Nobody gets charged for praying outside of abortion clinics. People might be praying outside of abortion clinics and get charged, but they're not getting charged for praying outside the abortion clinic. They are getting charged for blocking access to the abortion clinic. I don't even know what that means. Early Christians had their own abortion clinics. In early Christianity, they didn't even believe in letting women die without abortions. They even... Anyway. And dinosaur is Latin for terrible wizard, but they aren't lizards, just like a fetus isn't a baby. There's something called the etymology fallacy, where you try to use like some ancient thing and apply it to modern times to create alternate meaning to what the word actually is. And better procedures, protocols, and education, like how to deal with people with mental health issues, disabilities. Yes, exactly. Well, I'm glad you decided to vote for Kamala. Trump did an after-birth abortion on his yacht. Okay, since we need to know, define fetus. Okay. Since some people don't know what words mean, we will answer this question. A fetus is the developing offspring of a mammal, specifically a human, from the end of the embryonic stage around week 9 after conception until birth. So, in layman's terms, a fetus hasn't been born yet, and a baby has been born. No, that's a subtle distinction for some of you, but there is a difference between those two words. Exodus 21:22 through 25. Treats harm to a fetus differently. Yeah. Is that the one where like if two men are fighting and one of them accidentally kills a woman, then he gets the death penalty, but if she's pregnant and causes a miscarriage, then it's like he has to give her 2 doves or something. I can't remember. But yeah, like there's a different penalty. All of the things no, they're not. And you're just arguing semantics instead of logic. The extremists intentionally chose words to create anger. They know that most will not do any research. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, sure. So you're for illegalizing all abortions, except for that small percentage that meets those parameters. Where did I say that? I never said I'm for illegalizing all abortions except for the small percentage. I'm saying the small percentage that meet those parameters, those are the only times where viable babies are aborted. Or where babies that are more developed are aborted. Almost all abortions are on non-viable babies, either because they're not developed enough yet or because they have no chance of surviving. The other exception would be like if the mother is going to die if she has the baby. Like I've actually talked to people that had to rush their wives to the emergency room to save their lives in order to and because a miscarriage was killing them. I mean these are not hypothetical scenarios. These are real life things that these decisions do not belong to me, to you, or to any other person. They belong to the mother, the father, and the doctor. And everybody else just needs to stay the hell out of it. If somebody has a doctor that, people are entitled to their own doctors. If somebody wants to get a pro-life doctor, go for it. There's a fake study. They do this. This is when I talk about the dishonesty of the pro-life community. Another thing is like they did this fake study where they sent out opinion polls to like 2,000 doctors, and they asked them whether they think that life begins at conception. Now, virtually every pro-life doctor just took one look at that, threw it away. Then all the pro-choice doctors threw it away. And then the pro-life doctors, like 30 of them, they got like 30 back out of these 1,000. And like 28 of the ones they got back said that life begins at conception. And so then they used 28 out of the 30 to say like 94% of neonatologists or whatever, obstetricians, believe that life begins at conception. Because they just used the ones they got back, not regarding the fact that 95% of the polls they sent out weren't even returned because it wasn't even taken seriously. Yeah. Herb's got receipts here. Can you look up the hey Herbs, if you wanted to you should look up the parable of bitter waters. If you kill a pregnant woman and it's charged as double homicide, the pregnant woman did not decide. And that's according to different laws. Different states have different laws. But yeah, there's a big difference, dude. You mean logically? Republican doctors agree a fetus is not a baby. So do Christian doctors and even pro-birth doctors. If it was about saving lives, ancient medical ethics, heavily influenced by Jewish law, prioritized the mother's life. If a pregnancy was going to kill the woman, intervention was morally acceptable, even required. And everybody is entitled to believe what they want. Nobody's, advocating for mandated abortions. You can believe what you want about when life begins. But your belief, which is 100% based on your religion, probably, but whatever it's based on, your belief is yours. Other people do not have to live by your beliefs. I would say this, just to the pro-life crowd. If you are concerned about abortions, you can make abortion illegal and not prevent abortions. People will still get abortions. They'll just get illegal abortions. You talk about guns and, if you make guns illegal, people are still going to find a way to get them. Well, you can make abortions illegal and people are still going to find a way to get them. It's not about whether or not you make it legal, make it illegal. That's not going to change things. If you want to change things, the number one reason that women get abortions in the, early stages is finances. Either they can't afford it or they just going to be giving up their life. And I don't mean, like saying, we'll adopt a baby and do all this kind of, there's some church groups that do these things like, we'll adopt a baby and, pay for it and stuff like that, which I guess is better than a lot of things. But make it so that women that have babies do not have to destroy their lives in order to have that baby. The number one thing is finances. And if you go back and, if you look before Dobbs and you look at, states where abortion was legal and not restricted either through law or through like just cutting things down to one abortion clinic, the number one thing that impacted abortions was the poverty line, the number of people that were in poverty. When you give women the freedom to have babies, they want to have babies, but nobody wants to be like impoverished for the rest of their life and like have children that are going to live in poverty. The other thing you need to do is I've interviewed a lot of women that have had abortions because I think that their view also is important, not just whether or not they have one, but why they have one. And what I didn't expect when I was talking to them was a lot of women that have abortions because they don't want the father of that baby in their life for the rest of their lives. They want the father out of their lives. They're in abusive relationships, and sometimes it's not physically abusive, it's just verbally abusive, and they just don't want that person in their life anymore. And they have that right to like cut that person out of their life. But if they have the baby, that person is stuck in their life as the father of the baby. And so they maybe don't want their baby to be raised by a man that is abusive. And they don't want to have this abusive man in their life for ever. So also give women rights to like excise horrible people from their lives. Like look at how you can help women that have these babies that don't want to have the babies. Maybe help them want to have the baby. If you're like pro-life, make them want to have the baby instead of forcing them to have the baby and then abdicating all responsibilities afterwards. Like you can't sit there and force women to have babies and then say, oh, well, it's your job, deal with it. Why aren't you working? Why, you want Medicaid and you're not working. And it's because I'm at home taking care of the baby that you forced me to have. I think the defense will definitely use them in court too. If it ever goes to trial, there's all kinds of things he did and said in those where he's saying, I'm not a protester. I'm just here as a journalist. There's nothing in there that shows him doing anything illegal. So yeah, I agree they'll be used in court, but they'll be used in court to get him off, not to convict him. It's called The Punch Show. What do you think? Somebody else is going to be here today? You look like Bart Simpson. Interesting. Never been told that before. I've been told Alfred E. Newman, but never. Methods used. Herbs knows what he's talking about when it comes to this topic. Herb methods used, ancient techniques, not modern surgery, historic. And it's like nobody's paying attention to him, but he's just still going, just boom, boom, boom. He's sitting there writing a thesis on ancient abortion, and it's some really interesting comments, historical and archaeological evidence. Oh wow, there's like apparently a lot of evidence that abortions were performed regularly in Jesus' time, but Jesus never mentioned anything about them. It's not in the Bible. I think that's something really significant. See how easy it is to access knowledge, Maga. You're currently in a device where you can. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. How did the age of misinformation become the age of disinformation? The KK Act is going to be. I mean, they are charging him with violating the KK Act. I don't think that this will hold up in court. And Biden used it too, along with the FACE Act. And like you weren't here, but I disagreed with Biden using it then. I disagree with Trump using it now. Yes. 99% of abortions are elective, and they occur during the first, 17, 18 weeks of pregnancy. But yes, they're allowed that choice. That's the whole point of pro-choice, is you have that choice. They kill living people all the time. Why do they care about abortion? Touche. Maybe that's what we should mention, is that there's pregnant women in Gaza. They're aborting all those babies. Started with Donlin. Now it's because it's all kind of the same thing with the FACE Act, the two sides of the FACE Act. Human life begins when there is no definitive statement for that. People believe different things. Some people believe, and this is my opinion on this, is that you can believe that abortion or that life begins at conception. Some people believe that. Some people believe, like somebody just said, life begins at birth. Other people believe, like I do, that life begins at some mysterious point in the middle when the baby becomes viable. I have held a 21-week premature baby in the palm of my hand. That's an amazing thing. Like, you wouldn't believe how small a 21-week baby is. So I think that, yes, was it 21 or 22 weeks? At the time, it was this was back in the 80s, 88. And it was one of the one of the youngest babies ever born. I think now it's down to like 21 weeks or something and 6 days or whatever. Don't quote me on the exact age, but Like the baby could fit in the palm of your hand, like not even getting to the fingers, and weighed like less than a pound or something. So I think, viability is a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, once that baby becomes viable and it can live outside of the womb, that it's, alive. But everybody has their own opinion on it. And if you believe that life begins at conception, then like some people are arguing in here, then I can understand it. Like that baby has rights. Like I believe this baby begins at conception. Therefore, that baby has rights because he is alive, or she is alive, or it is alive. I mean, like if that's what you believe, I can understand why you would believe that baby has rights. But if you don't believe that life begins at conception, if you believe it begins at viability or at birth, then you have a whole different thing. Then that mother has rights too, right? Like the ultimate the ultimate overreach of government, if you're pro-life, is allowing the government to just like pass laws to murder you before you ever even drew a breath. And if you're pro-choice, the ultimate violation, overreach of government is the government being able to tell you how to conduct the most private, essential aspects of your own healthcare. Like either way, it's not like you can compromise in the middle here. There's no, well, it's kind of alive, but it's not quite alive. There's no compromise. And that's why I think that you have to allow people to choose what they believe to be the thing. You can't just ask somebody else to go along with your beliefs. If you are pro-life, don't get an abortion. That's it. But you can't force other people to live by your beliefs. So a miscarriage, and I'm okay. So like I find that using words like psyop and propaganda are disingenuous here. There's not a psyop. There's not propaganda. This is not some sort of government run thing to get you to, it's just people have different opinions. Like the psyop is that there's a psyop. 99% of abortions are done for medical reasons. Women do not go around ending pregnancies for the hell of it. There's the 99% of the abortions after like 21 weeks are. Most of the abortions done before they're viable are a matter of choice. Like just I'm not ready to have a baby right now. Yeah, you guys act like a fetus is suffering before it even has a brain cells to experience suffering. Okay, after 20 weeks, when it can feel pain, it is murder. Well, getting close. I think that once it is viable, I mean, if it's feeling, what if it's in pain? Like, think of this. What if it's in pain already and it has no chance of surviving? Do you think that forcing it to live another 20 weeks in pain just so it can be birthed and suffer even more pain before it dies, is that better? Like, what is the value in that? What is the value for the baby? What is the value for the mother? And somebody, people care more about fetuses. Exactly. I mean, like, why not just make it more feasible for the mother to carry and have a baby? I think, like even in countries in Europe, for instance, where they have universal health care, what is this is actually Hang on one more second. Sorry. Oh. Western Europe has even lower rates than the United States. Although this might be changing because now it's illegal in half of the country. But when you make it easier for women to have babies, they are more inclined to choose to have babies. Like, this is the thing about pro-choice, is it's not mandatory abortion, it's pro-choice. Give them a reason to choose instead of telling them what they have to choose. The only people that don't like abortions are mad because that fetus won't grow up to work in their supermall and get paid absolutely nothing. Fertilization, widely considered the start of a new distinct genetic organism. Yeah, that's not really relevant here. Biologists affirm that biologists don't affirm that. We already covered that study. That's a fake study. Human life does not begin at fertilization. There is a unique organism does not equal new life. All right, so it's still killing. Well, that's an opinion. It's one I don't share. It is not a fact. And it's, you've got your reasons for believing that. I have my reasons for believing what I am. You are free to believe what you want, and I am free to believe what I want. That's part of being American, is people are allowed to disagree. I believe that we are more than the sum of our physical beings. Having brain cells suffering is meaningless to my pains. That's, again, you're entitled to believe what you want to believe. But belief is not legislation. You don't have you're not allowed, well, at least you shouldn't be allowed to make your beliefs legislation that forces other people to live by your beliefs. Life begins at 40. That's actually pretty funny. Okay. Okay. Well, I need to take an emergency break here. I'll be back in like just a few minutes. Patsy seems to be busy. If you decide to jump on and cover for me, that's cool. But if you don't, that's fine too. Anybody still here? We still got people here. Thanks for waiting. Sometimes things just have to be done. All right. So with that break in mind, oh my goodness. Why is viability the beginning of life? Yes. It is okay to abort a 19-week-old fetus. I don't use the word murder. So I don't accept the question as, is it okay to murder? No. But is it okay to abort? Yes. And because viability is the beginning of life, because that means that they are actually alive. Viability is not the beginning of life. It just means that they are actually alive. Why? You can't kill something that is not alive. It is absolutely medically necessary. I can. Why? How many? I mean, I can almost guarantee you're a man. It's always men that make this argument, and it's never men that, saved it for their wedding day and didn't have sex until they were ready. I need proof to form a belief. Okay, well, that's your belief. This is all theoretical. There is no proof. Like, metaphysical and physical are literally mutually exclusive things. You cannot, proof requires some sort of physicality. Science, yes, but DNA and fertilization does not mean life. All kinds of things have DNA. That doesn't mean they're alive. After you're dead, you still have DNA, right? Medicinal plants help for and peace helps for fertility too. When people aren't going to war, people aren't inclined to not give birth. Yeah, I think even women actually have trouble getting pregnant during. It's not even just about whether or not you're having sex. It's literally the stress levels when lower fertility rates. New DNA is not new life. That's just not true. That's a nice little statement, but it doesn't make it true. Not to mention, it is not a moral question. It is a legal one. Right now, 10-year-old rape victims are being forced to give birth. Women are dying because doctors aren't sure if you are legally allowed to intervene. So why do we have laws at all if you can't believe? But I don't even understand why that would be a question. It's not a question of whether or not murder is allowed, it's whether or not your religious beliefs, I have to abide by those. There's a big difference between, is it okay to murder somebody and is it okay to be gay? Whether you think it is right or wrong, making abortions illegal is leading to more deaths, not less. Sorry, I'm back. Greg Gutfeld has an evil. So an identical twin? How is Greg Gutfeld's evil doppelganger different than Greg Gutfeld? Have to get off because I'm supposed to be cleaning. But I bet money all you pro-abortion people are all cis men. I've never even stepped a foot in. All you. Okay, here's where I I've never stepped foot in an abortion clinic because I've never needed an abortion. But I have worked on a neonatal ICU and I have worked in on OBGYN clinic. So I don't think I need to have not stepped in. I don't think stepping in an abortion clinic means I'm all of a sudden going to become pro-life, unless you meant anti-abortion. Pretty sure it's the anti-abortion people who have never stepped foot in an abortion clinic, never talked to a woman that's gotten an abortion. All things having if when you die, do you still have DNA? Okay. All right, so we're caught up now on the comments. Let's take a look at what's going on with the world of Epstein. Okay. So, oh, whoops. Here we go. Share this. So I'm reading all of this stuff for the first time. So oh goodness, this is too small for me. Oh, wait. Is there a way to full screen this or something? Let me try this. Aha. Okay. You guys see this? So we're going to, this is some of the highlights that author of the Epstein wiki has pulled out for us. Do you have a minute to just pop on and introduce this? Or are you like, apparently her site is under attack right now. So anyway, yeah, she looks like she's focused. All right. So we're going to look at some of this. All right. So please see below with criminal history and disposition. I am reaching out to get clarification on the response. So these are some of the things that Kitty, Resistance Kitty, has found. I'm trying to figure out how to get to I'm trying to make that smaller. Can't make that smaller. All right. Okay. So Redacted reported an unidentified female friend who was forced to perform oral sex on President Trump approximately 35 years ago in New Jersey. The friend told Alexis that she was approximately 13 to 14 years old when this occurred, and the friend allegedly bit President Trump while performing oral sex. The friend was allegedly hit in the face after she laughed about biting President Trump. The friend said she was also abused by Epstein. So then the response, this is, see if I can, Patsy, the responses, that's the FBI's response. Okay, so this is how the FBI responded.
This is them. These are some of the reports that came in and then how they were followed up with.
And one of the
And they're
big
part of the
issues, a lot of them were never followed up on at all, and that's part of the issue, right? Why does MAGA fight like hell to get life to term, and then soon it isn't born? They want to cut off all. That's what I'm saying. Like, just make it so if you don't fight pro-choice, just give women a chance to, or like a reason to choose birth. It's like it's not that hard. I think it's a hard decision, a hard thing for most women to decide. It's just give them a reason to choose instead of telling them what to choose. World of difference. Anyway, so back to Trump, she was forced to give Trump oral sex, and then he hit her when she actually bit. They spoke with the caller who identified her as friend. Lead was sent to Washington office to conduct interview. Results matching name and date of birth for criminal history in South Carolina. Date of arrest 6/18/1987 for assault and battery, high and aggravated nature. That must be like the redacted person. Somebody got arrested in 87. When did so in the late 80s their friendship began. Okay. Somebody else reported she has a friend, Leslie McMichael, who was a personal, I thought all these names were supposed to be redacted, who was a personal assistant to Epstein in Florida from 86 until 91 or 92. This friend shared names of some of the guests at Epstein's parties to include Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. They left 2 voicemails. No responses were received. Okay, this one. At age 16, while modeling, caller attended 8 parties at Epstein's New York residence. On one occasion. So these, by the way, these have been like, I've talked to you before about Kitty has this Epstein files wiki, or Epstein wiki, that has all the Epstein stuff on it. And she's been going over the new cache, and she's pulled out and highlighted some of the, I'm supposed to read the highlighted ones, I think. So that she's highlighted some of the better things. At age 16, while modeling, caller attended 8 parties at Epstein's New York residence. On one occasion, caller reported she was sexually assaulted by Epstein. On another occasion, 2 twin brothers, Alan and Ulrin, lured caller and her friend upstairs, but they escaped back downstairs. Caller stated Owen raped her best friend, and a third brother, Ty, raped a 14-year-old girl named Katie. LNU. Caller named other individuals involved in the big orgy parties with her, other younger girls, and older Victoria's Secret models, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Online and complaint reported she was a victim. Sorry, my cat is very insistent right now. So we've got government infringes on religious freedom from the Constitution, the Geneva Convention, and the Indigenous Rights Act on everyday basis. It's violated the name of Nixon's war on religion. In front of my city's Planned Parenthood, there are MAGA protesters constantly harassing young people going in. That's okay, but not in Minnesota. And that's the thing. That's actually, as long as they let them in, that's legal. I mean, or at least it's not a violation of the whatchamacallit Act. The FACE Act. If it has to be physical. So that's actually, thanks for sharing that, because that shows that when it's just verbal, people aren't getting charged with the FACE Act. course, now, as long as they don't beat the shit out of you, then it's not a violation of the FACE Act. Now, Donald Trump's just decided it's not illegal anymore to, as long as you don't injure anybody, you can block abortion clinics. Countless people have been murdered in the last 70 years for using sacramental plants, animals, and fungi in their religious beliefs. We do not have freedom of religion. We have war on religion. You should. That would be, if you share it with me, I'll share it on social media. When you do your dad jokes, you're supposed to somehow throw in, I've got one. I've got one that I just don't know if I think about like how this is going to affect the results of the 2026 election. I think that the Democrats are gonna they're gonna run, and you know how they're going to win big. They might even win the Senate at this point. And so like the whole what's his name? I am so bad about remembering names. Larry David, that's who I'm trying to think of. So you know how they do those things where you've got, like the pictures, and so then it would be like a picture of where somebody is asking Larry David, what are the chances that the Democrats win the election? And then you'd have like a picture of Renee Good or Pretty, and then Good, and then Pretty Good. Because you know how he's always like, pretty good in Curb Your Enthusiasm. But it just seems like really terrible taste to make pretty good puns. MAGA needs new material. MAGA needs to understand what comedy is. I have never met, I do not know of a single funny conservative. Like Gutfeld calls himself a comedian. He wouldn't know a joke if it hit him in the face. If it was a pie hitting him in the face, he has no idea what a joke is. Their idea of joking is laughing at somebody. Is their idea of a joke is literally punching down. And it's like they'll do these things where they'll do characters of liberals that are just totally not what liberals are, but they've invented this kind of liberal thing, with blue hair women or whatever. And then they make fun of this person that's not actually doesn't exist except in the MAGA bubble as a caricature of what a liberal is. Trump hasn't gotten it old at all, right? They all repeat the same dumb jokes. Where do they get it from? Typical MAGA, legally prosecuting people based on hurt feelings. I have a theory about that, but it's too long. About the jokes thing. Either way, it's really bleeping lame. Comedy, calling Lemon a journalist. See, this is what I mean. Like they think things like this are funny. Yeah. Don Lemon is actually a journalist. Like, why do you think that it's funny to call him a journalist? How is he not a journalist? Tucker Carlson went to Russia and found out that they have coin release shopping baskets, and all of MAGA freaked out about how incredible that operation was, as though Algae hasn't had them for like Algae, is it Algae or whatever? We have had them here in the United States for years. Y'all really cry too much? Are you talking to MAGA? I bet you think Nick Shirley is literally a prankster YouTuber. Our tax dollars are wasted on genocidal policies that destroy national parks in favor of chemical companies. All MAGA cares about is what Donald Trump tells them to care about. The next original thought by a MAGA will be the first original thought by a MAGA. Comedy is calling Nick Shirley a journalist or a smart or a human being, or saying he looks like an ostrich. All right. I like to refer to him as Nick. Stop calling me Shirley. That's the comedy right there. Is it stop calling me Shirley? We need home prices to come down for the first-time home buyers. I mean, we do. We need rent prices to come down. We need cost of living to come down. Everything has skyrocketed. Well, how are Democrats supposed to deliver on those things when Republicans have all the power? And actually, the whole thing about inflation is I have yet to hear a single person say anything constructive about how to handle inflation. Either I just want to chime in because I'm from Mississippi. I stand with y'all, with all of y'all, and there are a lot more like me down here for more than are given credit. We're just so gerrymandered, it's hard. Brother, I'm in Texas. I 100% feel you. Yesterday, Trump said he didn't want the price of homes to come down. He wants them to go up. Of course, he buys real estate. All of MAGA behaves like grade school bullies. They insult, name call, and throw tantrums. And the worst part is it's just so hard to have a real conversation with them. It's like if you state a fact, they will state an insult to, rebut the facts. Like, can you just try and have a real conversation, please? Why is that so hard? Trump is a liar and a hypocrite. I think that what they need to do, America is in need of cannabis conversation and reforestation efforts. Cannabis could combat climate change, but due to cannabis deforestation, many politicians will go extinct. I think what we need to do is we need to have a brownie baking contest and feed it to the entire Republican Party and get the entire Republican Party, good and baked on the best, pot that you can find. And I think if they got baked, if you could get like half of the Republicans baked, then you would have a whole different kind of Congress. Ted Cruz needs to get stoned. A journalist doesn't break the law. Yeah, well, they didn't break the law. We've already covered that. He didn't. Michael is a clown. Lemon pointed out a child that was crying and cowering in fear and made fun. No, he didn't. I don't mean what? Oh, surely you don't mean that. Yes. Surely you don't mean that. I mean that. And stop calling me Shirley. Don takes Fulton County ballots, falsely declares that he actually won. Cancels election. World War III. It's I'm trying to remember if you were here yesterday. We talked about Georgia elections yesterday. If you think Trump is going to lower the cost of housing, you're deluded. His property portfolio would drop in value. Donald Trump does not care about anybody but himself. Never has, never will. He doesn't even remember Tiffany's name, and Tiffany's his daughter. Corporations are rich. The government is rich from tax dollars. Let me. Hang on. Trying to figure out how I can make these things smaller. Okay. How did Gutfeld go through high school without being laughed at? I'm not sure he didn't. I would have mocked him mercilessly. Corporations will make record amounts of money and claim bankruptcy and get bailed out by the government with our tax dollars. And Jesse Waters overcompensating with manly this and manly that while he waves his hands around effeminately. If there has ever been anybody in the closet, and I'm not condemning him, you know, if he's gay, then that's fine. I'm okay with that. I just wish he was okay with that. He is the most closeted human being in the history. He even what's her name? Jessica yesterday even took a shot at him. I can't remember what it was, but he was saying something, and she's just like, it's not my fault you're gay, basically. I mean, if they want our votes, Democrats need to actually. Okay, you say that, like, what are the Republicans like? Why is it that only the Democrats need to run on and deliver the things, and how are they going to deliver on them if we don't vote for them? Like, and I don't even think that they're just running on we need Trump out, but just letting Trump stay in isn't helping anything either. It's like only like the Republicans. Why don't you ask them what they're doing? Why is it that the Democrats have to prove themselves, but the Republicans don't? Or you know, whatever third party. Like, why is it only the Democrats have to have this time machine effect where they can go forward in time, pass all their legislation without any opposition from the Republicans, get everything working before you'll vote for them? Why can't it just be that the Democrats offer something better than the Republicans? Why do you hold them to a higher standard? And even not even that, just an unreachable standard. I need to write maybe I should do a song about them. Oh, that's funny. I don't even know why that made me laugh so hard. It must have tasted musky. Oh, yeah. That maybe he has a peanut butter and toe jam sandwich. Trump isn't going to lower the price. Does that sound gross? Would you eat Elon Musk toe jam? Trump isn't going to lower them. We're definitely on a Friday. That's one of the most disgusting lines since Two Girls in a Cup on YouTube. Trump isn't going to lower the price of anything because he doesn't care. He doesn't control the prices. The corporations that own him control the prices, and they're only going up. And he's, you know, there's so many things that go into prices, but here are some facts. One, tariffs will make prices go up. Number two, mass deportations will make prices go up, because when you have mass deportations, you have the things that those immigrants are doing, like housing and agriculture and hospitality stuff. all those things don't get done. When those things don't get done, supply goes down. When supply goes down, guess what goes up? Prices. And when those things are in combination, so for instance, you have prices on food going up domestically because you don't have people to like grow the crop or to harvest it. And then the imported food is going up because of tariffs. And so then everything goes up. And we're already starting to see it. And Trump is trying to hide it with his firing the guy, but you know it when you go to the store. I don't care what it's almost, and that's the other thing is you can't trust any of the reports that come out anymore because you know that he's rigging them. You know he's rigging them not because of some conspiracy theory. Well, you know he's rigging them because he fired somebody for not telling him he wants to hear. He wants to get rid of Powell for not doing what he wants to do. Like he is objectively out loud saying it. Trump literally said yesterday he doesn't want housing costs to go down. He wants them to go up. I missed that one. Sorry, you have no bloody clue what you're talking about. Inflation started by Biden. The price of gas has to go close to $2. And I'm sorry, I know more about what you're talking about than you do. Just yelling stupid things is not really making a point. The inflation that happened under Biden was because of the supply chain disruption, primarily. Then there was also some of it was due to the stimulus bill, which heated the economy. But that also is why we had jobs and we had low unemployment. And there was another aspect of it, which is that because there was inflation, that actually fed into corporations rigging prices and raising them up even more. There was many different things that caused inflation. The idea that one thing caused inflation or Biden caused inflation, just saying something like that proves you are too ignorant to have a discussion with about it. Are you at the family gatherings to know he doesn't? It's a joke, Tammy. It's a joke because he never talks about her. So there's like a running joke that he doesn't know who Tiffany is. It's called a joke. You guys are so like, whenever Trump says something about murdering people and then you say it's a joke, then it's funny. But somebody jokes about Trump and you guys get all sensitive. Prove Trump wants housing to be affordable. Prove he wants housing. What is he doing to make housing affordable? Tell me one thing he is doing to make housing affordable. The 50-year mortgage? You think that's going to make housing affordable? It's going to barely lower the mortgage payments and it's going to double what you pay for your house. Trump is a self-hating gay that loves Nazis. Or he's a self-hating Nazi that loves gays. Apparently they love Hitler. I wish there was another party besides the Dems. The leaders are just too weak and polite. What I'm hoping for, I think I've mentioned this before, but what I would love to see is the Democratic or the Republican Party to just get completely eliminated by Darwinism. Like, just what's going to happen is so bad. Like, and Trump is basically the Republican Party right now. I mean, J.D. Vance is not the one that's going to champion the Republican Party going forward. Not unless, like, couches are able to vote or something. So I think that, like, what I hope happens is that the Republican Party just kind of goes the way of the Whigs, and then the Democrat Party becomes the party on the right, and then the party there's like a new party, like the Socialist Democratic Party or something, led by people like, you know, AOC and Bernie Sanders and that kind of Democrat. And so then the party on the left would actually be left of center, and the party on the right would actually be right of center. But it would be like people that are based in reality and have real conversations about real solutions. And so there'd be like real discussions and real debates about how we can go forward, instead of having investigations into how Fulton stole the election and just nonsensical, stupid debates. Like, I think we need to have real discussions as a nation on how to improve and how to get better and how to do things like lower inflation, instead of just saying, oh, Biden's inflation. Like that's somehow some sort of intelligent argument. Trump has a gay crush on Hitler. It's all the mustache. But if you guys are happy about the... What a weird thing to say. You are gullible and or highly misinformed. How can politicians ban THC if nobody voted for THC to be banned, even though it's a medicinal antioxidant that kills cancer? They claim it's a toxin with no evidence. Yes, you have a point. Dems were running this country from 2020 to 2020. Who was president in 2020? They like Trump supporters seem to have like memory hold 2020 as being like Biden was president. I don't care what you heard. What did you hear? What has he done? Tell me one thing he has actually done to lower the price of mortgages. Are they? I don't see anything other than Donald Trump's hollow rhetoric and made up things about all this trillions of dollars. You know how much, we had less money invested by foreign countries in America last year. Inflation is up, unemployment is up. The actual, for most of the country, actual real wages are down, not up, if you count in the fact that we're paying more for tariffs. We have less money to spend, most of us. So yeah, the Republicans are not obviously doing a good job. We have division like we've never had before, because you have ICE running around murdering American citizens on the street. You've got the president of the United States sicking the military, our own military that I pay for my tax dollars with, like being unleashed on the streets. We have undeclared wars going on in Venezuela, so that, whatever. We're kidnapping people from in other countries and bringing them back here for trial. And I'm not just talking about Maduro. I'm talking about what happened in Scotland. You're talking about a president that's sitting there declaring these trade wars, causing all kinds of chaos and all kinds of marketing. You're talking about a president that's destroying our closest alliances. India made more money, made a bigger trade deal with Europe than either Europe or India made with the United States just recently. Because everybody's looking for other way nobody can trust us. Even if you make a trade deal with the United States, Donald Trump's going to change his mind and on a whim. Yeah, we are not doing great. We're doing terrible, and everybody sees it except for the most faithful MAGAs. They're doing a crappy job, Tammy. Open up your eyes and take a look. Read a paper. Change the channel. See what's really going on. I dare you. Running on getting Trump is good enough for me. I mean, that should be enough for anybody. He is a convicted felon. He is an adjudicated rapist. He has no business being president of the United States. And on top of all that, he is an idiot. He is a moron that doesn't even understand what a tariff is or how it works. The man is dumber than a box of rocks. And no, both sides are not the same. We need to stop this kind of nonsense that they're both the same. They aren't. Neither side is perfect, but that does not mean both sides are the same. They can't even hold a normal primary. They don't. I don't know. Democrats and Republicans are anti-THC and pro-THC. The caps. THC caps are unconstitutional, unscientific, and are from lobbyists. They only listen to lobbyists, not people's opinions or emails. Well, I'm pretty confident that if there were a legalized marijuana candidate, he would get, or she would get, Herb's vote. MAGA love cracking jokes. There's so much material with Donnie that all the ones they work for get blinking results. Actually, Mike Johnson is even deeper in the closet than Jesse Waters. I always think it would be funny if Daryl, Issa, and Mike Johnson got married, and then it would be, they could take a hyphenated name, Daryl and Mike Issa Johnson. If I was a MAGA, I would change sides just so I'd have more comedic material to work with. Like the actual idea of what a joke is and how it works is, I've thought about this a lot, like an actual joke, like a good joke. And you think of like good comedians, like whether it's, like Freddie Prinze Jr. or Andy Kaufman or George Carlin or Robin Williams or, some of the newer ones. Any comedian that is genuinely an actual good comedian, the way that a joke works is it's got to be clever. It's got to be smart. It's got to be, you get somebody's brain going in one direction and then you have this twist to it. Like all of a sudden it abruptly shifts to something else. And you're like, that's funny. It's like, that makes you laugh. That's a good joke. A bad joke to me is always, it's just cruelty, because but like there's a way where sometimes you laugh at something because it's uncomfortable and because it's hard to see, and so like there's just like a nerve reaction to seeing it. Like I remember one time I was playing chess with a friend of mine, and he went to go get an iced tea, and he was like walking and he stubbed his toe on the coffee table. This was in high school. He stubbed his toe on the coffee table and he was jumping around holding his toe, and he was like hollering, and it's funny watching somebody that just stubbed their toe, right? And or like watching like somebody get slapped in the balls jokes, every sitcom ever, or every like classic physical comedy, right? That makes us laugh too, because there's something about like just that discomfort or the pain that somebody's in that causes this laughter reaction. And that's the cheap comedy, the cruel comedy that MAGA goes for. They think that the funny thing is to actually insult people, put down some people, and they're like, oh, you just don't have a sense of humor. They'll tell a racist joke, and you're like, that's not funny. I don't think racist jokes are funny. And they're like, oh, you just don't have a sense of humor. And it's like, no, I do have a sense of humor. I just don't think racist jokes are funny because I have a sense of humor. Anyway, that's my pontificating. on why MAGA jokes aren't funny, because they're not smart, so they have to go for the cruel. They have to go for the other way that makes people laugh. I didn't vote for this. Or you're talking to the MAGAs. Now we got enough material from Elon. Yeah, see, oh look, what does that even mean? That's not a why is that funny? Go on, explain it to me, Philly. These are the short-term effects. The long-term effects of those policies will bring price down. No, they won't. That's just a hollow, empty, meaningless statement. Economic development. I mean, you look at it. We've had less money invested. The whole point was we were going to get more money invested. We've had less money invested. When is this magic turnaround going to happen? In December of 2026? Right after the midterms? Or is it going to happen in December of 2028? Economic development isn't. Yeah, and we've had a 40-year transition from the where there's been wealth transfer from the middle class to the wealthy for 40 years. There isn't a reference. Oh man, interesting. They don't have contractions in Russia. Is that it? You ever get tired of talking about this? No matter who is in office, they don't care about you. No, it doesn't matter. Well, I don't understand why. You mean I can talk about it if I want. Oh, it's like, why are you worried about what I'm doing? And y'all want criminals to be free, so they steal. Then you want it. You voted for one. You voted for one, dude. You're the one voting for criminals. I didn't vote for a criminal. Trump is hurting this country, especially when these immigrants aren't doing anything wrong and going to try to make this economy good again. It's just sad. That mass deportations are just fundamentally, provably, demonstrably bad for the economy. Immigrants help the economy, whether they're legal or not. Jobs help the economy, and they are doing jobs that other people don't want to do. So that helps the economy. I don't understand why it's so hard for MAGA to understand that people doing jobs is good for America. Strawberries getting picked is better than strawberries not getting picked. Meat getting processed is better than meat not being processed. It's really that simple. The jobs they are doing are getting done, and because they are getting done, that is good for the economy. That's good for the people that are paying them. That's good for you and for me, because we end up being able to buy those things and pay less money for them because they're getting done. Dems rigged the election in 2020. Donald Trump was president in 2020. How did they do that? How did they rig Georgia when it was a Republican state? How did they rig Arizona when it was a Republican state? How did they rig all of these Republican states? Do you ever think with that thing in your, like there's this bone up in your head, it's called a skull, and that thing that's inside of it is called a brain, and it's used for thinking. Try to do that. Oh, great, more TDS. See, an insult instead of logic. Herbs, yeah, that's true. I have to read that like, oh, that's true, dude. Because, anyway, on all the reports under, actually, yes, they were. They were the exact same thing as every report before them. They didn't change anything. They didn't fire anybody for not giving them good results. So yes, Trump is the one that changed everything. Trump literally fired somebody for doing a bad report. He actually did that. That is not something I am making up. He fired the director of the BLS because there was a bad jobs report. I am not delusional, Tammy. I am informed. Do you ever get tired? I mean, you're the one that walked all the way over here and you're doing a lot of complaining in a channel you don't like. I don't understand why people go around to channels they don't like to criticize those channels. And these are the free speech people, you know, that are supposedly for free speech. But then it's like, oh, these people are speaking things I don't like. Therefore, I'm going to denounce their, you know, doing it. Who said they disappeared? This guy probably thinks, yes, I know for a fact it really happened. I saw it happen. Walked. I'm okay. Well, Clumpy, why are you sitting on your couch scrolling through your thumbs? Scroll away. Keep scrolling. You don't have to stop here. Nobody's forcing you to. Because correlation isn't causation, Philly. You know, did Donald Trump cause the largest unemployment in 40 years, or did COVID do that? Why weren't you crying then? Why weren't you blaming Trump for the unemployment under COVID? He was president when it happened, therefore it must have been his fault, right? And countries like Switzerland did not kill it during COVID. You are so uninformed and illiterate that it's just you need to stop drinking. Maybe y'all should go to Fox so you can just fold your arms and nod your head in agreement. Then you won't have to do anything. That's right. Except to nod their heads and harbor their gay crushes on Jesse Waters and Gutfeld. Okay, what policies of the Biden administration caused worldwide inflation just when there were all these other supply chain issues? Please tell me how Biden caused inflation. Go ahead, explain it. Explain to me how Biden's policies caused inflation. Tell me what Trump is doing to bring it down. Don't just say things as declarations. What policies did the Biden administration do to cause inflation? All I hear is all Republicans can do is say it happened, and they can never say how, other than they'll be like, oh, it's all that money he printed, which is a fake thing. We have greed. We don't have inflation. We have greedy corporations. That is a big, huge part of it. Don Lemon should not have gone into that church that way. Why not? Why not? He was covering a story. Why not? When pro-life protesters go into an abortion clinic and block it, and pro-life reporters cover that story and go into the clinic, should they be prosecuted? It's the exact same law. Sorry, having some reflex. It's the exact same law. How come only Don Lemon, out of everybody that's ever covered a story that's been covered by the PACE law, or by the FACE law, how come he is the only reporter that should ever be prosecuted for it? What makes him different? Go on, explain it. Use your brain. Think about it. Tell me why he is culpable, but none of the pro-life reporters that covered the abortion protests, how come none of them should be prosecuted? No, I understand you perfectly. You're just a moron. Okay, what short-term Band-Aid fix? What did he do as a short-term Band-Aid fix? How was it a short-term Band-Aid fix? Be specific. Don't just speak in sentence fragments that don't have any logical ending. Okay, how did he not cause it? Because it was an international pipeline issue. He didn't. The pipeline did not have any effect on anything because there was no oil running through the pipeline. The international supply chains were shut down because of COVID. This is like an easy thing. Even the Federalist says this. Like, read anything at all. Stop watching Fox News and just hollow declarations. How did he not cause it? How did Donald Trump not cause unemployment? What policy? What policies? Go ahead. Tell me what policies. Tell me how they tie back to it. Tell me what they even means there. Why not? I'm actually Gen X. I'm not a boomer. I don't know why people think I'm a boomer. Interest rates, duh. Interest rates were brought up to lower inflation, Tammy. When inflation goes up, interest rates go up to bring down inflation. You don't even know the basic elements of economics here. You're talking about the exact opposite thing. Why do you think Donald Trump wants interest rates to go down? Because that increases investments. When investments go up, though, that also increases inflation. The whole thing about interest rates is to balance inflation with unemployment. When unemployment is going up, that means there's not enough investment. So you lower the interest rates to get more investment so that unemployment comes down. It's coming down because there's new jobs. When inflation starts going up, then you raise interest rates because when inflation is going up, it means usually that people are getting jobs and people are spending more money, and so that's why inflation is going up. What happened in that period around 22, 23 is we were coming out of the COVID pandemic. During the COVID pandemic, there were a few things that happened. And also there was the war with Ukraine and Russia, which disrupted the oil supply in Europe, which made the price of oil go up, which made the price of gas worldwide go up. There is a whole bunch of things that are all interconnected here. And just saying Biden is a nice little hollow slogan talking point, but anybody that actually knows what they're talking about on a macroeconomic level is not going to say Biden's inflation. That's just a stupid thing to say. And I mean, I'm at a loss for why people are so easy to accept stupidity and then blame Biden's stupidity. Who's saying it didn't go up? Who said they were going to bring prices down on day one? President Trump says he wants to drive housing prices up, not down. Here. So this is just some pudding with that proof. Okay. Right here. President Trump says he wants to drive housing prices up, not down. Amid growing affordability concerns across the nation, President Donald Trump said he's looking to driving housing prices further up, not down. Trump said at a January 29th cabinet meeting, he wants to make it easier for Americans to buy homes, but not by making housing less expensive. Studies suggested lower interest rates he expects from his upcoming pick to lead the Federal Reserve will allow more Americans to buy homes, even as housing prices rise. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for the people that own their homes, and they can be assured that's going to happen. Which, what do you think that's going to do to inflation? It's the democracy that party that is there is no such thing as the Democrat Party. There's the Democratic Party. And it's not disappearing. Oh, you're still here. That's a surprise. AOC is actually a very smart woman. I know that you don't like to hear that. I know that doesn't fit your little tropes and stuff, but she is actually a very smart woman. I recognize this troll from many channels. I feel like I need to try navigating the I am just making up everything I do as I go along. I don't know if that shows or not. It probably does. I never intended to fall into this thing. I just, after the 2024 election, I just thought, I saw this poll, exit poll, and an article about how the number one indicator of people voting for Trump is the more they believed in disinformation, the more likely they were to vote for Trump. And I just thought we need to do a better job of getting real information. There was even just like what we've been talking about with the inflation thing. I was so mad at the news for like 2 years that every time inflation came up, there was like, this is bad for the Democrats. This is bad for the Democrats. There was never any analysis of why it was bad for the Democrats, what the Democrats were doing to make it, bad. It was never anything about what the Republicans were going to do to make it better. It's just inflation existed, therefore it's bad for the Democrats and good for the Republicans, which means that's what everybody was just getting drilled into their brain for 2 years. Everything that, inflation is bad for the Democrats and good for the Republicans. And they never even had to come up, not one Republican ever had to come up with a single thing to make it better. All they had to do was was just criticize Biden. And they didn't even have to explain why Biden did anything bad to cause it. Or they would talk about the border crisis and people crossing over the border. And they wouldn't explain that most of them were being sent back, or that Joe Biden was just actually, enforcing the laws according to the way that the asylum laws were written. And that if you wanted to change what was happening, you had to change it at the legislative level and change what our asylum laws say. Like they would never have like actual substantive truth on any channel. Like I don't care if it was MS Now or MSNBC or Fox News or whatever. CNN is just about as useless as a moldy brownie. People are like, oh, so you get that from CNN? I haven't even put my TV set on CNN in like over 20 years. It's useless. But, you know, I just thought, well, I just want to get information out there. Hopefully people can, you know, actually have access to real information. It might change a few minds. And so that's why still the thing I want to do with this channel is to just convey information. That's why I do the slideshows and stuff like that. Not like it's having a tremendous track record or anything, but I've gotten a few to think, I hope. Independent party. I'm not sure independent party or third party really works either, because you know I've looked at the Libertarian Party is really dumb. Like their whole platform is dumb. Green Party is, you know, I look at what the the other parties do, and they're not any better. It's just they're third, or you know. And so at least with the Democratic Party, you might be able to have like a person who wins that's at least not a white supremacist. President Trump says he wants to drive. Okay. Oh, it's more like it's right and far right. I don't know what your thinking is as far left or centrist, but right now we're like literally building concentration camps in America. That's not neither left nor far left. We are way to the right. We are. Name a major country that's to the right of us. Maybe Russia. Like name a country that's not an authoritarian country that is to the right of us. Go ahead. I don't know what Charlie Kirk has to do with this. Charlie Kirk was not having conversations, by the way. But I mean, I don't know. Like you make it seem like I have to concede that, you know, like why what does Charlie Kirk have to do with what I just said? I do not think that it was okay to murder Charlie Kirk. It's like why does it always have to be these kind of like weird false dichotomies? So I let one left-leaning party at a old lunatic left-leaning party. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. That is absolutely sorry, but the Republicans have already proven how corrupt their Democrats are. Do you is Russian your first language? Should have more access, not less. Arbitrary caps get in the way. I agree. I think it's just marijuana should just be completely legal, period, in the story. The ones that the current Democrats are mostly center right. Like here's an example. Right, like in America, we consider universal health care to be like a far left fringe sort of idea. Everywhere else in the world, they would consider healthcare based on your income and employment status a far right extreme ideal. Like most places, universal healthcare is normal, is considered right down the middle. All right. We have some Democrats that want universal healthcare, and we have some that don't want universal healthcare. The ones like Chuck Schumer are center right. The ones that want universal healthcare are more like center left. We do not have, there's not even a far left faction of the Democratic Party. I know some people that were Republicans that are voting Democrat now. Some that were Tea Party Republicans. People like Joe Walsh and Joe Scarborough, who were far right, who were at one time were considered right-wing Republicans, that are now voting with Democrats. We thought the GOP was dwindling, but they just keep receiving large donations from millionaires and billionaires and super PACs. We thought the GOP was on the way out in 2020, but they just somehow, yeah. What happens? It's happened with Bush. It happened with Reagan / Bush 1. It happened with Bush 2. And it happened with Trump 1. As they they get the government, then they run the country into the ground, and then people turn to the Democrats to rescue us. And then Bill Clinton, 8 years of peace and prosperity. Bush takes over, drives, brings us into a war, and then crashes the economy. Obama rescues it. Then Trump takes over, crashes the economy, brings us into civil unrest, introduces, just like we have the worst pandemic in the world in 100 years, and he's like on the pandemic side. Joe Biden takes over, brings us out of that. Donald Trump takes back over, just wants to drive straight back into the biggest brick wall. Yeah, but it's all the Democrats' fault. It's what they do. Republicans drive us, like, crash everything. Democrats fix everything over and over again. I just wish we could break the cycle and get 2 Democrats in a row so that we could actually build on the success, rather than as soon as we start doing well again, some Republican comes along and destroys everything. I think marijuana THC needs to be legalized at the federal level. There you go, Herbs. You got an advocate. We thought the GOP was dwindling. Gas prices have absolutely nothing at all to do with Donald Trump. Gas prices have to do with the international price of oil. International price of oil is down for a number of reasons, mostly that OPEC Plus is just releasing more oil. Well, hopefully Don builds that trashy octagon in front of the White House. Hopefully he gets in against Newsom. That might be the way I would watch that. I would like to. Oh man, but I would insist that he have his diaper changed before the fight starts, because I'd hate to like accidentally get stuff on my hands. Maybe you should actually read a book. The GOP receives huge donations and just keeps reinventing. Yes, it's always got to find somebody to pit against. They've always got to pit everybody against. Is it black people? Is it gangs? Is it cartels? Is it immigrants? They're always got to. In the 80s, they pitted us against Japan. It's always got to find an enemy that you're afraid of. Japan and Russia in the 80s. Japanese cars. I remember there was so much about Japanese car. All right, go ahead. Bye. Bye. Bye, Felicia. The debt was less than $1 billion when Carter left office. We don't have a justice system. We have a caste oligarchy that has courts that protect the caste oligarchy. So here's a story for you. This is one day. I heard about this guy that was a guest speaker when I was in college. Went to go see him. Turned out he was really smart. He was a community organizer. And so he was talking for a while. And I don't remember what the thing was, but he had said something about there was some kind of issue. I can't remember. It was like in 93. And he said something that made me think of something that had there was like a big controversy, but there was actually no law against something that some rich corporation had done. And so he said, there's, I'll have some questions afterwards if you want to talk. And so I went to him afterwards and I talked to him for about, 5 minutes. And I asked him why he thought it was that this thing that was just so blatantly immoral wasn't illegal. And he said, well, you have to understand there's a difference between wrong things rich people do and wrong things poor people do. The wrong things poor people do hurt rich people. And because they hurt rich people, they're against the law because the rich people are also the ones who make the law. The poor things, the wrong things rich people do hurt poor people. But the wrong things rich people do aren't against the law because the rich people make the laws. Speaking generally. I was like, man. I thought that was profound enough that I remembered it for, now, 30 years later. But round about 2004, I saw him again, and he was giving a speech at the DNC that shook the country. And he ended up running for president in 2008. And his name was Barack Obama. And after I talked to him, I went to go meet a friend of mine, and he was like, you're late. I was like, 10 minutes late because I had stopped to have this conversation with Obama. And he was just a community organizer at the time. And so Rob's like, oh, well, what happened? How come you're late? I said, I think I was just chatting with the first black president of the United States. True story. Anyway, I think it's a cool story. Who bruises their wrist bumping it on a table or shaking hands? That wouldn't be. Somebody that thinks that aspirin is a food group. I think interests are coming down in my. Yeah, I don't know that the government having, or the president telling the Fed what to do is a good idea. I think that's bad. Amazon prices went up after the tariffs. They aren't murdering, they are doing their. I don't know what that has anything to. I don't know what you're talking about. Obama started all of this division. Okay, prove yourself right. Obama didn't start all of this division. There you go. I just proved you wrong. You are delusional. Import prices went up. Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, they had to pay more for things they imported because they had to pay tariffs. 96% of U.S. tariffs have been paid by U.S. consumers, while about 4% of the tariff burden was paid by foreign exporters. Kiel Economic Institute. Yeah, this is called the pass-through rate. And when people talk about, well, why are you okay with corporate taxes and not tariffs? And it's because the pass-through rate. First of all, on tariffs, 100% of the import cost is passed on to you. That doesn't matter whether the company is making money or losing money. With corporate taxes, only a percentage of the profit of the corporation is being taxed. So it's impossible for a company to not make a profit and still pay corporate taxes, because the corporate taxes are only on the profits. But a company can lose money and pay tariffs and like operate at a loss. Like tariffs can force a company to operate at a loss. And so what they do is they raise their money. They raise the prices, corporate taxes, because they're already making a profit and they're in a, supply and demand and stuff still operate. They can't adjust their prices as much. Excuse me. So they might raise prices some, but they don't raise prices as much. So the price, like they have what they call the pass-through rate. How much of the money that you are taxed do you pass on to your consumers? And the pass-through rate for tariffs is around 95 to 100% most of the time, depending on the tariff and what it's on. The typical pass-through rate for corporate taxes is about 20%. So yes, they both have some taxes passed on, but not nearly as much for corporate taxes as for tariffs. This is things like people need to study macroeconomics, at least a basic understanding of it. Yeah, TDS. They act like that's some sort of retort. No, I'm not misinformed at all. There was a court order that they couldn't remove people from Scotland, and they went and they removed them anyway. That's called kidnapping. Breaking down doors and violating private citizens. We don't need India as a trading partner. Well, then we do about $212 to $213 billion in traded in goods and services. So yeah, we do need India as a trading partner. Open your eyes, you libtard. Brilliant argument. Actually, my wife's life is 1,000% worse after Trump took office. Like, prove it. Prove it. Prove what? You just made a declarative statement that's just a stupid thing to say, and then you say, like, prove me wrong. No, you prove yourself right. See, now we're back to the CNN argument. Do you know what a fact is? Can you argue with a fact? Just any argument. Go ahead. Make an actual argument that's not just an insult or you know, like an empty declaration that I have to disprove before it's you know, like it's valid until I disprove it. As a European, I can tell you about how we over here think about Trump's America. I'm sure I know every once in a while I see somebody who claims to be European who talks about how wonderful they think Trump is, and it's possible some of them are telling the truth, but most of the people I know in Europe are not big fans of Trump. He was convicted of 34 felonies. I am grateful for the ability to block maggot comments. Yeah, usually Patsy's in here filtering out the nonsense for me. A trafficking survivor with a T visa was kidnapped by federal agents and disappeared. No info to his family or lawyer. There's been so many people who've been disappeared. That one I haven't heard of. I was talking about the people that were on the boat that was the oil boat, and that went, and it was like in Scotland, and then they were trying to deport him, and then there was a Scotland court said they couldn't deport him, and then they did it anyway. The U.S. did it anyway. They're just like going into other countries, arresting people, and then bringing them back here to stand trial, as though that is at all a legal right that we have as a country. No other country can do that. Do you think we would be okay if, like, Canada sent its military in to arrest an American citizen? Forget whether it's anybody important. Just Canada started sending in its military to arrest American citizens and then take them back to Canada to stand trial. I am not a tariffs expert, but I do actually know something about tariffs because I actually read about them. I've had a couple, at least 2, 3 PhDs from Wharton come on the show and talk about tariffs. I know something about tariffs. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not an expert, but I have talked to experts. And I know that when tariffs happen, I do know, for instance, that when a tariff is placed, in order for the person importing the goods to get the goods that he imported, he has to actually pay those tariffs before they're released, before he can actually use the things he imported. I know that is the person who pays the tariffs. Then he can pass those on to whoever else. So if he's like getting widgets and then somebody's got, some whatchamacallits that he's making and he needs to buy widgets for those whatchamacallits, and so he buys his widgets from the guy that imports the widgets, then that guy might have to pay more money. But then the price of his whatchamacallits go up. So then he passes that on to the whatchamacallit, or he raises the price of his whatchamacallits when he sells his whatchamacallits to Walmart. Then when Walmart sells the whatchamacallits, they charge more for the whatchamacallits because they had to pay more money for the whatchamacallits. This is just basic economics. You don't need to be an expert in tariffs to understand that. But Donald Trump doesn't. Donald Trump doesn't even know that we pay for it. He thinks other countries pay for it. I don't even know what that means. So is Joe Biden. Joe Biden was smart enough to become president of the United States. What have you done? All you do is come on here and call names. No, that's not all I do, Gary. I'm not just calling. That's a very small percent of what I do. Boomer watches. I thought I just spent all my time talking on this channel. Which am I doing? Funny how when people spit facts, you stop reading. What facts? I don't think you understand what facts means. Just stating a factless opinion is not a fact. He was proven guilty. A jury rendered a decision of guilty. He was adjudicated. A jury said he is guilty. He is a convicted felon. Before George Bush got elected, I never thought I would be smart enough to be president. Or I never thought, before George Bush got elected, I never thought I would be smarter than the president. And before Donald Trump got elected, I never thought George Bush would be smarter than the president. Sander, we are. If anything, I read more comments from the people trying to debate me. But I do not see substantive comments from people trying to debate me. I'm reading your comment, right? What comment? I probably skip most of the comments. I skip over are either things like this, where I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, or remember, like, this is just, what am I supposed to do with that? Or they're directed at, come on, Sander, at least produce a coherent sentence. Like they're not even directed at me. This channel sucks. I can read that one. What comment am I, skipping over? Why do all the Democrats see? Now let's talk about this one. Why do all Democrats not see that all other countries love and respect him? So this is like, why don't Democrats not see that all other countries love and support him? This is a declaration. Other countries don't love and support him. That's why Democrats don't see it. This here just shows how utterly ignorant Democrats are. So now there's this completely unqualified statement that's just blatantly wrong. And then that proves that I'm ignorant. And I'm supposed to like spend time rebutting this? What? There's nothing there to support it. Show me the facts. Where's the receipts? Show me that other countries love and respect him. Because mostly what I see is other countries don't love and respect him. Most other countries don't even like him. He's the least popular president outside of America in the history of the country, as far as I know. You think Canada likes him? Just go and play Red Dead 2. Yes. I don't. What am I supposed to debate that one? Bro, why you change the subject? I didn't change the subject. No one believes that you would have a friend. See? That's, get back on the topic, please. I don't know what the topic, or buy crypto. Love the food, hate the people. What am I supposed to be? What am I skipping over? What intelligent conversation am I trying to dodge here? So you'll be paying your mortgage till you're 90. That is like, yeah, those 50-year mortgages are just, and you only save like 7% on your actual mortgage payment. You barely even save money on your monthly payment, but you end up paying over twice as much for your house. With the 50-year mortgage, you end up spending almost 4 times as much as what you spent your house, you paid for your house. I don't laugh when people get hurt. Y'all are the ones that cheered for the murder of. I never cheered for the murder of Charlie. I didn't. You guys act like there was like a bunch of, there were a few people on TikTok. But you guys sit there and I've saw more Renee Good jokes, more jokes about the murder of Renee Good than I did about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. See, so okay, you are really not too intelligent, T.O., to think he can turn what has happened to our country. He is doing a great job, and I would vote for him. See, this is, what am I supposed to like? What is the intelligent thing that she is saying that I am supposed to be arguing with? Tell me. I'm not, I don't want to debate anybody. What is there to debate here? This is just an empty, hollow, brainless opinion that has no fact, no substance. There's nothing to debate. She's entitled to feel that way. But there's not, it's like arguing with air. Yeah, thank you. I am just reading through the comments. And then I get accused of skipping over the comments and start skipping on all the comments. And then it's like, why do you keep changing the subject? What is racist? What's an ignorant take on immigration? Yeah, so just fake talking points. 20 million people are not coming over unvetted and vaccinated. Are they vaccinated or unvaccinated? Anyway, this is just empty. Our student visa is like the one they gave to Elon, but he didn't attend even one day of class and took a job for a startup company, which is grounds for deep. Yes, if Elon Musk were in 2025 and from Somalia instead of South Africa, he would be deported. Oh, you're so good and clever and okay, this guy is Didn't you just type that? I do not think Don did anything wrong. No. Are you talking about Donald Trump or Don Lemon? I do not think Don Lemon did anything wrong. Or Melania, when she took her visitor's visa and accepted a modeling job, that's grounds for deportation. Somehow that never happened either. Yes. It's only, it's about the pigment. It's about how much pigment you have. There was never any problem with immigration. There was like, in 2008, or around 2007, 2008, there was some kind of push for immigration reform. And there was a lot of people that were talking about, and it was like more or less bipartisan, and like there was a genuine conversation about, well, there's a lot of immigration coming, but then there was also, well, who's going to do the jobs? And it was mostly, they talked about maids then. Who's going to be the maids? But there's a real conversation to have about immigration. We need immigration reform. But just immigrants bad is a stupid beginning of that conversation. We need to have legal immigration, and it can't just be people doing the good jobs. We need legal immigrants to be able to come over here and do the jobs that, are what I call low-rung jobs. These are the people that want to come over here and do the low-rung jobs so they can climb the ladder. Immigrants are more than twice as likely to start a new business. They believe in the American dream more than Americans do. And so we need them to come over here and help the economy. You do realize we're in a test oligarchy system, and there isn't going to be any new voting record. So, Kitty, do you want to? Are you back, or what's good? Let me know on the private chat if you want to pop on and talk anything Epstein. Well, he didn't deport 5 million. It was more like 3 million. And no, I didn't have a problem with it. I don't have any problem with people being deported at all. I think that the problem is that you don't actually understand the difference between what Obama did and what Trump is doing. And I don't think that you're even curious enough to find out. Have you ever, like, honestly, you repeat this, but have you ever looked up what the different deportation policies are? Have you ever been curious enough about your rhetorical question to find the answer? Why do you think that people look at Obama's deportations differently than what's happening right now? Like, honestly, instead of using it as a rebuttal and a whataboutism that isn't even a valid whataboutism, have you ever thought of actually looking it up? Because apparently I spent an entire week on this. But yeah, there's a big difference between what Obama did and what Trump is doing. For starters, Obama wasn't sending in 3,000 ICE agents to murder American citizens on the street because they didn't vote for him. I am definitely a union guy. Well said. I hope that's sincere. I don't know what I said. I live in Arizona, and I thought you lived in Russia. And if the people who are from the Democrats states would stop moving here, as we are a Republican state, snowbirds. I don't even know what that means. Hey.
Bill Gates got an STD by one of Epstein's girls.
Oh, wow.
An email about that. So that's kind of interesting. I just came across this. Now I have to go back and get back to work. But that's kind of that excitement. There's actually a lot, but there's just, I'm too overwhelmed right now to be able to process it verbally without, what I would put out here would be blah. I would sound like Trump. I need to take some time, organize my thoughts, process.
No. I mean, did you get the whole, you were saying something about in the private chat about the Epstein, your wiki was under attack or something?
Oh
Epstein
yeah,
wiki?
there was the I thought it was. It turns out it's just traffic.
Awesome.
So
It's a good
there's
problem,
some
not a
stuff.
bad problem.
Yeah, no, it's a good problem. It's a good problem. But mostly it's there are some unredacted items that need to be redacted because they show faces and sexual encounters and could be considered child pornography, I believe. So I tried to tweet with the oversight committee and send an email and all that kind of stuff because I'm worried about safety. So that's part of what we were doing. And then we did a spaces over on X.
So
talking a little bit about some of the stuff we found.
Awesome.
So
we'll have it. We'll talk about that more next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week because then I'll have more stuff more organized.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Patsy. See ya. So with that, I think I actually need to get going here because I have to go. So anyway, I will see you guys on Monday. Thanks for watching.